Welcome to OG55 Live. Today we are talking about Pandora coming to Disneyland. We're talking about Zootopia possibly coming to Animal Kingdom. We're going to talk about that Walt Disney World union strike. We're talking all kinds of stuff today. We have a stacked show for everybody today. Let's get started. OG55 Live. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG55 Live. Today we have a lot to discuss, so let's go ahead and dive right in. First out the gate, we got Vash, Sky, Dr. Dre. I think that one of your new titles from one of our videos recently, Dre, was the Fire Marshal, right?
Yeah, I guess I did see that title in there. I was like, wow, the Fire Marshal. I didn't even have to be here, and now new nicknames are being crept in there. That's fantastic. Well, the Fire Marshal's got the hat on. We're going to fight them fires on a late night tonight, so sorry about that. Do apologize. But hey, listen, hopefully you guys appreciate it. We got so much to get into. I'll dispense with the pleasantries very fast. If you want to go ahead and follow me, you can go do so right down there at VashSky. Just go ahead and type that in. Should pop up for, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say, for all the robust discussion right there. OG, you got that drop for me?
Oh, I got that drop. Take it away, Walt.
And there's the biggest bargain of all.
And the biggest bargain of all indeed. That is the channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55, where you can find my show there as well. Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info. Squeezed fresh right from the Grove. And because we're doing live, well, let's get it out of the way here. Here we go.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
There you go.
Hey. It's obligatory at this point. We have to play that drop on the live
Gotta
show.
do the O'Reilly. Have
Gotta
to.
do it.
Have
Gotta
to.
do it.
Yes.
Down below, we got George, the Family Man 23, Mr. Balls to the Wall, host of the Walt Disney World Show here on the channel Citrus Corner. George, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, except your OnlyFans. We can't share that. It's a family show.
Absolutely. Yep. Of course. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You can check out the new podcast I'm part of called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
All right, let's make it official, fam.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to all who come to this happy place,
welcome to Orange Grove 55.
All right, let's dive in. Stacked show. First on the menu, Avatar coming to Disneyland, okay? Coming to Disneyland. That quarterly earnings call, Bob Iger dropped a bombshell, basically. And I'm going to go ahead and read you a little snippet from what he was saying here at that quarterly earnings, and I'm going to talk about it because there's a lot going on with this. Bob Iger here says, quote, "Lastly, we have learned that when we invest in increasing capacity, the Star Wars lands were a great example of that. Pandora was a great example of that. We can grow our business. In fact, if you look at the results when you put Pandora at Animal Kingdom, I mentioned earlier in the call how we're going to bring a version of Avatar to Disneyland. We have other opportunities as well. I've talked to Josh D'Amaro about this very recently, like this morning, to really look at all the great franchises in this company and see where we can invest in them into the park to increase capacity while preserving guest satisfaction." Bob Iger. Now, Dre, I'm going to start with you, man. There's a lot of fans are out there. They're kind of poo-pooing this. Like, you know what? This is going to be like a meet and greet, or they're just going to have like some pop-up sort of Avatar experience, in the park, real cheap, kind of slapped together. Everybody here on this panel, we have a different perspective on that. We think that this is going to be a big deal. But Dre, I'll let you elaborate. What are your overall thoughts on Pandora or Avatar coming to Disneyland?
Look, let's go ahead and let's see what let's compare what we have to say on this and compare to what people are saying on this collectively in the community,
Right.
various members and so forth, and then we'll actually get into the reality of what might actually be coming. So for the first part here, I know a lot of people have a lot of different thoughts on it, and the wide gamut of reactions to it seems to be one, like I was telling OG over the phone, and George, I think I've told you this too. People seem beaten down. They seem like, oh, it's nothing. I don't think it's Pandora. Don't think it's anything close to that. Don't think it's an attraction. At most, it's an attraction overlay. Most likely, it's going to be the experience in Singapore, or maybe it's going to be a meet and greet. Don't think of it too highly. And to that, I say, no. and here, the reason I say this, okay, and it's not without some evidence and some factual information that we know about right now, and some speculation to that end. But the reason I say that, look, you guys know me. I'm always the one, tampering down expectations, right? I'm always saying, hey, look, don't get your hopes up. Don't look at this. Don't, this is, I'm always the one poo-pooing everything. George, you know that well. Yes. We've had our discussions, right? And have disagreed back and forth at time or two about these kind of things. Very beneficially, though, I think. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you in this case, fam, okay, I think this is far more substantial than people are kind of giving it credit for. And I have a list of reasons as to why, but that's kind of my initial kind of reaction to this. Like, don't get too beat up on it. I think this will be substantial. And maybe it won't actually include all of, like, a Pandora or a clone or something on that size and scale, but I think it will be very substantial. OG, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Well, first of all, the snippet I just read, the transcript from the quarterly earnings, he literally puts this Avatar experience in the same. Basically, he talks about it in the same breath of Pandora in Florida and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. He's lumping all of these things together for a reason. He's not talking about a cheap meet and greet and comparing that to Pandora and Animal Kingdom. That would make no sense. So he's telling you in that quote right there, in that paragraph, exactly what they're planning to do. Now, I see a lot of content creators and people in the fandom, right, saying like, oh, well, I don't know. It's like, if you put it in the motorboat cruise area and you replace the submarines and Zootopia, the monorail track is all in there, and it's just too much of a hassle. They just can't put it in there, guys. They literally rerouted or shortened the Rivers of America to fit Galaxy's Edge. Okay, a couple of monorail pylons or cement beams is not a big deal compared to what they had to do to the Rivers of America. I mean, that whole notion that this is just too complicated for them to handle is absolutely ridiculous. But George, what do you think, man? What do you think? Pandora coming to Disneyland, is it significant, insignificant? Where do you kind of stand with this?
Yeah, I mean, well, OG, you are the one that religiously had mentioned on this channel time and time again, Pandora can work in Disneyland because if you can place it in a perspective that it joins in with Tomorrowland, with the futuristic side of technology, which Avatar is, and Fantasyland, because it's a fictitious planet. It's a fictitious world, fictional characters, what have you. It would fit cohesively. And even to the fact of going back to Walt himself, he put a mountain based off of in Switzerland, like right in the middle of the park, and the Imagineers are like, what are you thinking? This isn't going to go well. And it's one of the most beloved attractions to this date at Disneyland.
In the 50s.
In the 50s.
360-degree coverage, no warehouses. In the 50s, he put a roller coaster in the middle of Disney.
In the 50s, yeah.
And just for clearance, this is 1959, not 1955. Yeah. So there we go.
Correct. Well, yeah. We'll get to that.
Yeah. So I just had to throw that in there. But the whole notion of Avatar being in Disneyland Park, I feel that Disney tends to use the term experience, but it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, it's going to be like a pop-up shop or a meet
Right.
and greet. And one, to mention this in the first of the quarterly earnings for 2023, when the company is already facing a lot of backlash and trying to get up on its feet, I don't think that would be the time to try to make something out that it's not. That
Right.
whatever Iger mentions, it's like take it full force of what it is, because he's going to try to rebuild back up the loyalists of this company to get everybody on the same page again. And second of all, you're also dealing with James Cameron.
Right.
He is not going to put up with something as simple as a little walkthrough experience in a building that's just a fake facade. That's not him. I mean, when they were doing Pandora at Animal Kingdom, the Imagineers had to pull him back.
Yes.
Because
Right.
he wanted to like move like full force. It's like, let's do this, let's do that. So, and I really feel like that, and especially back in 2011 that they had mentioned, Animal Kingdom was not going to be the first and last stop of Pandora entering the Disney park. So when you kind of put all that together, it's really safe to say, and as Dre had mentioned, it may not be an exact replica of Orlando's, which in a way I hope it's not.
Yeah.
You know, I would love a completely different immersive experience to say, hey, I have to go to California to experience this.
Right.
I would love to see more incorporation of the Way of Water into Disneyland, especially since they have the lagoon area.
Right.
Or,
That would be
or future
perfect.
ideas.
Yeah.
Well, and our friend, our brother, Mr. Theme Park Wizard, thank you so much for the donation, Wizard. We do appreciate it, brother. He says, but there's no space, OG. Yeah, and here's the thing, and this drives me crazy with Disney fans. Everything's impossible. I've been in this community for 20 plus years. When AOL was dial-up, okay, that's how long I've been in the Disney community. I've heard all the excuses in the book about why they can't put certain things here because there's a building, or why they can't do that because of this. I remember even hearing magic bands weren't coming to California. It's impossible. They can't build an infrastructure for the bands that are ever coming. Well, here they are, you know. I mean, Galaxy's Edge, nobody would have expected them to bulldoze all that backstage and build it there and reroute the rivers of America, but they did it. Runaway Railway. Again, they had to bulldoze some backstage to put that building in there. They did it. If Disney wants to put something in there, they're going to find a way to do it. Avatar is $1 billion franchise. These two movies have made $4 billion. They're going to move heaven and earth to get this thing in this park. I am telling you that right now.
Couple things
Go
on
ahead.
that. Couple things on that. So, well, first, I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge something that was happening right now.
Captain John D's in the house. Here we go. Welcome aboard, Captain.
Fantastic, fantastic. Welcome aboard for sure. The water is warm, for what I understand. Don't worry, we won't make you walk the plank.
Sorry, that was me.
Well, don't worry. In that case, we will make you walk the plank like the actual Pirates of the Caribbean did not too long ago, actually, when that boat started to sink. But that's a whole nother story. I wanted to go over why it's going to be substantial and what I kind of think is might be kind of going on here. So really quickly, okay. Avatar 3 and 4 have already been shot, by the way. So it's not just $4 billion in box office revenue already collected. It's even more than that potentially. Go ahead.
Right.
OG, what were you saying?
I'm agreeing with you. Absolutely right. I mean, and this Way of Water movie made over $2 billion. The next one will probably make close to that as well. So I mean, this is a money machine for Disney right now.
5 is being shot right now. Post-rendering, I should say post-production rendering is already occurring on 3 and 4 as we speak. Obviously, it's a multi-billion dollar film franchise with billions of dollars in potential, and it is a relatively safe investment for Disney, given the other options it has featuring its other franchises if it receives a sizable budget. Okay, so CapEx is staying at similar levels. Yes, that is true. However, projects all over the world are starting to wrap up now. They're starting to complete. We just saw an update from Hong Kong recently. Epcot is still very much in the works, but Tron is opening up very soon. Mickey Mouse Railway is already open. Toontown is opening up a little bit later than expected, but that is wrapping up most of those within this year. So what does that leave? That leaves pockets of cash that are opening up for a big investment like a Pandora-sized expansion. We'll get to that in a moment, though. Context matters. OG, I'm glad you brought the quote there because this information was revealed on an earnings call with investment in financial firms like JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and others. The only thing they are interested in is large capital investments that move needles, not meet and greets. Okay, so that's first off. But second off, on that same point, Bob Iger and Josh Giamaro, now the head of one of Disney's three pillars for its organization, were discussing it together the morning of that said earnings call when it came to the Avatar experience at Disneyland. And you mean to tell me that the CEO of the entire company, who already has enough on his plate as it is, by the way, he already had Nelson Peltz, he's already got, obligations to the board and so forth. You're going to tell me that he's going to have a conversation with one of his top executives on something like a meet and greet worth far less than his monthly salary just before his corporate earnings call? Yeah, I don't think so. It didn't seem likely, right? Go ahead.
No, it doesn't seem likely. And I think you're right, Dre. I think that there's a lot of fans that are sort of beaten down, right? They've been disappointed. I also think it's a little bit of a copium, right? Because they're proactively trying to not be disappointed. So if you downplay it now, when whatever is announced, you won't be disappointed. And I understand that fandom.
Sure.
But there's so much evidence pointing to this thing being significant.
And there are more reasons. There are more reasons, OG. Let's say if it was a meet and greet or the Singapore experience, for example, right? Well, that's a quick type up on Disney Parks blog, right? I mean, George, I think you made this point here. That's like, that's news you can just launch even simultaneously with Bob Iger's announcement on that day or maybe even the day after. And you have, I'm sure you have stock imagery of the Singapore experience and so forth. You put that in, put a little typeface on, boom, it's coming, right? That's nothing. The fact that we haven't heard anything, that's a big indication as well. But like you said, OG, he mentions this, Bob Iger mentions this in the same breath that he does with the experience of Pandora at Walt Disney World. And he said it in the context of demand and growth. Why is he using the term growth if it's just a meet and greet? Those don't expand capacity, or not to any sizable degree. Anyway.
And I'll take it even one step further, Dre, as when you just mentioned, and even before that same breath of mentioning Walt Disney World, he starts off with the film franchise saying over $2 billion at the box office. Right. So it's like he's like, why would you work up all the way to start at a high and say, oh yeah, you're getting a walkthrough from Singapore?
And remember, $2 billion. That's a lot of money. I think over Force Awakens now, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That is correct.
This movie? Okay.
Yes.
And remember, when that movie premiered in 2015 and made all that gobs of money, that substantially changed the course of direction for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and getting the budget it received as well, just from that one movie. Now, we got two with potentially three more right here, and we're already far higher than Force Awakens even began with. That's kind of where come on, guys. Put this all together right here.
And even James Cameron had mentioned in an interview right as The Way of Water was opening, before all the numbers came through, and he mentioned if the fans want it, he even has a storyline even in his mind as of right now for a 6 and a 7.
Yeah.
And he says if the fans want it, he says, I'll give it to you.
I'll do it. I'll give it to you. Go ahead.
Now, our good friend Theme Park Casual, go subscribe to Theme Park Casual, by the way, on YouTube. We love Casual. He does great content, live streams from Knott's, Disneyland, fantastic work. But Casual here makes a great point. He says it was going to be something they're not proud of, they'd dump the news on a Friday afternoon like something else recently.
Something else recently? I really don't know what you mean by that, Casual. I could have sworn that the company was very proud of this, that they were all too willing to shut down two historic, legendary, and beloved attractions just to actually showcase this new product. Why would they dump anything on a Friday afternoon relating to that? I don't understand. I don't get it. That doesn't make any sense. But Casual makes a great point here.
No, it's a fantastic point.
This is a corporate earnings call. Everybody's on the phone. Everybody's listening. That's where you bring out this big announcement, not small in stature at all. And why make the comparison with Pandora in the first place if it's not going to be comparable to it? That doesn't make any sense at all. And then lastly, George, you brought up a great point about James Cameron, by the way. Look, this is going to be a showcase of his passion project in the theme park of all theme parks right next to his Hollywood friends. You think he's going to let that slide and let that be underwhelming? I don't think so. But lastly, Bob Iger's legacy is on the line here.
Oh, big time.
20th Century Fox. We were just reading a New York Times article about today, OG, about how there's been criticism over Fox and the debt and all this kind of stuff, and how people think of Bob Iger differently from that purchase and how they haven't capitalized on that purchase, right? What better way to do that than a big, luxurious expansion at the Disneyland Resort, and you get people all over the world to actually see it. Now that right there, it all makes sense.
It all makes sense. And Brandon Wong says here, do you think Scott Trowbridge will be the lead Imagineer for Pandora since he took a picture of the motorboat area? Now, on Twitter, Trowbridge, for those of you not know, just to get a little context, he took a picture of the motorboat lagoon area and says something like Disneyland is never complete. Now, this was a while ago. Now, it was rumored that it was going to become frozen. And look, that was in the Chapek era, and it might have been planned to be frozen. Clearly, there's a new sheriff in town with Bob Iger. Probably going to be Pandora. Go ahead, George.
No, I was just going to say, Brandon, I actually agree with you because this was, in my mind, that when Scott Trowbridge, showed the location, but didn't really necessarily give any inclination of what it would become, that would be the perfect spot that they would kind of slap Pandora right there. So now that Joe Rohde isn't part of the equation of that, he was the head of the original Pandora, Scott, just coming off of Galaxy's Edge and everything, I think, that would be, Disney's approach to, have him lead a team to create this.
No, 100%, 100%. And Isadora Rendon says here, was there anything Iger said about it specifically being in Disneyland and DCA, maybe Disneyland Forward? Yes.
Okay, so
Isadora.
we'll go ahead. OG, explain. I was gonna put up the tweet there with Scott Trowbridge, but you're right. Let's get this out of the way here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it does say here. I mentioned earlier in the call how we're going to bring a version of Avatar to Disneyland. So he mentions this park specifically. It's not going in DCA. Now, it might be Disneyland Forward related. I doubt it, though. Disneyland Forward is still very much in its infancy. Who knows when that's going to happen? I don't even know. I was
pointing this out to some people online because they asked me, it could be at DCA though, right? It could be here. And I said, not necessarily, all right? If you look back at Bob Iger's pattern of speaking, he is usually pretty specific about the parks. He's usually pretty specific about what parks he's actually referencing, mentioning as it relates to projects and so forth, right? He doesn't say Disneyland Resort. He says Disneyland, and singularly too. Now, he doesn't include park, I understand that. But remember, when he was talking about the Pandora experience at Disney's Animal Kingdom, well, he actually says Disney's Animal Kingdom. Right? He actually says the actual park name as it relates to Pandora. And so if it was going to be anywhere else, it's kind of weird how he wouldn't just say Disneyland Resort, catch all, boom. Disneyland directly implies that is where it is going to be. And George, to your point, this is Scott Trowbridge tweet, obviously at work. I do believe, because I actually don't know what's under Scott's portfolio right now. Obviously, he had Star Wars Galaxy's Edge under his portfolio and all the Star Wars projects related to that. But now that's actually slowed down, and Scott Drake, I believe, has Marvel under his portfolio, it would make sense that Scott Trowbridge be intimately involved in this project going forward.
And I actually find this very unique that Disneyland would be in this position. Because if you actually think about it, fellas, that both Galaxy's Edge and Pandora are currently right now at Walt Disney World. But you have to go to two different theme parks just to experience them. And where it's Walt Disney World's parks may not be considered as all-day parks because, let's face it, Disney's Animal Kingdom and Disney's Hollywood Studios, you kind of have to try to stretch out your day to kind of have some fillers in those parks. If you put Pandora and then also have Galaxy's Edge in the same park with Disneyland on top of everything else, that's a multi-day experience.
Oh, big
Absolutely.
time.
So
That's a great point, George.
That's going to drive even more people out to say, you know what, if we're going out to Disneyland, let's do a multi-day just at that park alone, not even counting DCA.
And what big events are happening in, I don't know, the Southern California area that would, mandate a visit to Disneyland? Well, we got maybe the Olympics, maybe the World Cup, maybe some of these bigger events that LA was, that was fortunate enough to grab. Now that's going to bring a new, let's say, layer of demand when it comes to their respective theme parks. What better way than to welcome those incoming guests than a new land like Pandora?
Absolutely, 100%. Michael Lee here says the motorboat Zootopia area can hold how many Avatar rides? One,
Right.
two. Modern rides are bigger than back in the day. Now, Michael, I would say one. I think it's gonna have. I think if they do this area, it'll be the land with one ride. I could be completely wrong, but that's kind of my feeling on it. What do you think, Dre?
Couple things on this. I wanted to point this out. Now, I had the graphic. I just couldn't get it in time for the show, and I very much do apologize for everybody. I will have that. I will make that available on a subsequent show. However, okay, and maybe I'll put it in the comments. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how what I can do here. But I did some surveying and some Google Maps and so forth, Google Earth, and just try to determine just how large of a space that we're actually talking about. Now, if you are talking about like the Matterhorn, you don't have to get anything, and you can fit about 5 Matterhorns in that space, okay? Just to kind of give you an idea of how large this area back there is. And then when you start getting into removing stuff, you can even fit more. So let's say you took the entire submarine voyage Lagoon, the Zootopia load-unload area, and everything to the north as it kind of encircles the park on its current berm. That would likely be altered, but let's just say the berm of monorail track up there and the Disneyland Railroad track as it encircles the park. Let's say you push everything up that way. The numbers that I got from making a comparison to Pandora at Disney's Animal Kingdom gave me about 0.47. I don't know. I think it was square miles or something like that. The numbers that I got from Disneyland, 0.43.
Very close.
That's pretty close. That's pretty
right. And that's just reconfiguring of some stuff, and you can get that extra acreage if you need it. So even Pandora at its current iteration, let's say, anything north of the Tomorrowland area, that can make that you can fit all of it in there, depending on how much you actually want to get rid of. Now, to be honest, the 2 building type setup with Navi River Journey and Flight of Passage did not work out at all. The Imagineers have said if we ever do this again, it's going to be 2 separate buildings. Well, at Disneyland, that's very, very tricky. So what most likely, if they're going into something that's very similar to Pandora and Disney's Animal Kingdom, for instance, we might just get Flight of Passage. That's the big one. That's the one that people get very excited for. That's the one that has the most draw, and it is the most configurable to future experiences involving the Avatar franchise.
And then, sorry, go ahead, OG.
Well, no, I was just saying. I actually think I don't think we're gonna. I think we're gonna get a way of water thing, because I think my mind is kind of going in a direction where, losing the lagoon, the sub lagoon. I think Disney's gonna look for ways to sort of replace that body of water with a new body of water, right? Because it does work very well in that area. I think this new area, it'll obviously be Avatar, but it'll be Way of Water, and it'll be a completely new thing. Again, just my speculation, but that provides them an opportunity to have some water there, because we're going to be losing that if we get rid of the subs. Go ahead, George.
Actually, I agree with both of you. I think it's going to be both. I'm going to go balls to the wall. And
really? Okay.
Yes, and here's why. Because before this was even announced, Cameron had wrote an email to Iger stating that they can add and implement different scenes from different movies into Flight of Passage. So you can kind of have that Star Tours element that they can take stuff in, take stuff out. It's very easily to change up. So that way, if they put Flight of Passage, it may not be the original that we have at Walt Disney World, but it might be an iteration from the Way of Water. Then with instead of having the Navi River journey, then that's where the lagoon could come in for Disneyland's own version of a D ticket attraction for number 2.
Two things on that real fast. One, that's what was my configurable comment before. That's the reason I use that terminology is because, like you said, George, the Flight of Passage ride system, as outlined by James Cameron himself via email, like you so astutely pointed out the flexibility in this ride system. And there is a creature very similar to an Ikran or a Banshee from the first Avatar that's available in the second Avatar, but underwater. And we know that the experience is very variable for Flight of Passage as it exists today. It would make sense if they were to go in that direction to recreate that. Now, to your point, OG, they might do something original as well, but I would think that that same kind of flexibility might be preserved with whatever actual attraction, ride system, or whatever that they actually go with. To your point, George, have any of you guys seen the Tokyo Disney Sea experience, submarine experience that they have over there in that park? Have any of you guys seen this before?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah,
okay. I've seen it. Yeah, but
because my brain kind of got thinking here, and I'm like, how could you reuse the subs? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. What if we didn't reuse the subs at all? What if we just used the actual track? What? Because the subs is the problem, right? It's their 40 long, very long loading, very long, long unloading, right? And it's not wheelchair accessible. It's just not. So even if you do have a great experience down there, ADA compliance is just not provided for an attraction like that. But what if we're thinking about this wrong? What if we just remove the subs, maintain the track, maybe Kuka arm ride system, maybe smaller subs like what you see here. You can go ahead and share my screen. This is via Attractions 360 on YouTube. They have smaller subs. And the way they get around the maintenance problem for this attraction is the water is actually within the glass that you're looking out.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
That's how that effect is actually created. And you can see how small these actual things are. But what if, instead of a kind of almost Peter Pan type conveyance system, well, what if you have a Kuka arm technology controlling these instead? And now you can lift them up into position, load them you would any ride system, load them back down, and now you're going through. You can have like a bubble tunnel underneath the actual lagoon if you want to preserve it. And now, boom, that's your ride system right there.
That's
What
fantastic.
do you guys think about that?
Thus, ladies and gentlemen, this is why Mr. Vast Sky only needs about 10 minutes with WDI. That's it.
Come on. Get WD on the phone and let's make a meeting, right? Let's do a meeting. That's all we need. That's all we need.
Exactly.
Now, Sam Chat, friend of the channel, says, if Avatar is built in the Zootopia era, would there be sightline issues with the Matterhorn? Now, here's the thing, Sam Chat, and this is all subjective, okay? And we're talking sightlines, so I'm not trying to get anyone riled up, but let's talk sightlines. Let's talk sightlines. In my opinion, when you have natural kind of elements, right? Trees, mountains, rock work, that stuff works in any land, right? So if you have the Matterhorn, which is just a mountain being seen from Pandora, I have no issue with that. It's a natural thing. It's like seeing Big Thunder from Galaxy's Edge. Mountains and rocks exist in the Star Wars universe. Mountains and rocks exist in the Avatar movies. Not a big deal in my opinion. Now, if you go across to DCA and you see the Anaheim Convention Center from Pixar Pier, that's a sightline issue. That's a problem. Yes. The stuff at Super Nintendo World with the Comcast building, that's a sightline issue. That's a problem. But Matterhorn from inside Pandora, it's a mountain. I mean, and Pandora is going to be full of mountains too. So why I don't see the problem there. But
I don't see the problem either, George. You've been to Magic Kingdom now with Tron actually being constructed for multiple years here. When you're around the Storybook Circus area, and you're seeing. Yes, and you're seeing that building right there. Not pleasant, from what I understand, right? Big warehouse, right? And that, to me, I think you made a great observation here, OG. The sightline issues from one land to another, it's really how egregious actually is it, right? When you see a warehouse from Storybook Circus, Nobody likes that. When you see certain, like, or for example, DCA, right? When you're walking around the pier and you see the Hilton over there, nobody likes that. But people are perfectly fine with, hey, you're walking around Rivers of America, right? You're getting into that third entrance next to Rise, and you see the Batu Spires back there, but you're in Rivers of America. But it works. Why? Right. Because it's heavily themed and it's complementary of its surrounding environment and doesn't detract from it.
And that's where, speaking of Galaxy's Edge, that's where Disneyland does it right. Where with Walt Disney World, when you're in Toy Story Land and then you're going to go that back way into Galaxy's Edge, there's no proper transitioning to kind of say, okay, how can we kind of mesh these two together? Maybe like have a giant Darth Vader action figure, like or something in that nature. But you could even see the Galaxy's Edge spires when you're on Slinky Dog. Like when you hit to that very peak at the top before you come down the hill, you could see the whole entire Galaxy's Edge. Crazy. And it's like, well, do you really necessarily want to see that when you're in a land that's incorporating a Pixar film?
Right.
You know, so it's all about that contrast.
It's all case by case. It really is. Now, our good friend Wizard, again, thank you so much, brother, for the donation. He says you can get Flight of Passage and a unique second attraction like WOW. I'm not sure what that is. Dre, do you know what
like
WOW
a
is?
wow
like a way of water coaster? So I believe somebody else actually had something about a water coaster. I actually talked about this with Wizard on his show, by the way. Feel free to check that out if you want to after the show, of course. But make sure you subscribe, Wizard. But when we were actually talking, there have been conversations about, well, didn't Disney buy 3 of those rideable coaster type coasters from Vekoma, right? There wasn't 3 actually acquired ultimately. This is after the Shanghai and Magic Kingdom versions. And it was always presumed, for a while anyway, that it would be, that would integrate another theme completely separate from Tron. Couldn't you adapt that for an Avatar type experience? I say you can. It's just, there's some sightlining problems with that. Tron is very, very large. Like, it's way big. You have to kind of expand the borders just for that. And then you have a problem. This is kind of why I'm okay with Tron not coming here. And one of the reasons why is because that building would overshadow stuff like, Small World, Toontown, Fantasyland. I'm okay with not having those sightlines impeded on by a blank building. Could you theme it to Pandora? I think you could. And I think they would take the extra effort. All things possible, all things on the table.
Well, and especially since we heard from our mutual friend and reliable source, Dude, Trust Me, Bro, that actually it was in the pipeline that Tron was thought of to go into Disneyland. So if Disney was actually exactly, even before Walt Disney World, go figure. So if that was on the table, Pandora can easily slip in like a glove, and I actually think fit in better than Disneyland Park. But actually in the comments, Sean says Pandora could possibly go where the Fantasyland Theater is, or maybe Tom Sawyer Island. What do you guys think? Definitely not Tom Sawyer Island. I don't think they would even approach that because of Phantasmic.
I'm sorry. We're saying Tron go in the
Pandora.
No, Pandora.
Pandora.
Yeah, Pandora.
Yeah,
definitely not Tom Sawyer Island because of Phantasmic.
The Fantasyland Theater site, just that site alone. Now there is a adjacent site between Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and Toontown that is open, and it is there for expansion, especially of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, but it is open, right? If you were to somehow merge the lands of Fantasyland, maybe have an attraction ride vehicle take you underneath the track and actually get you back there, you could do something like that. The problem is Fantasyland Theater, that's a kind of a small site. It's smaller than people think.
Yeah.
And so, to build anything substantial there, your options are limited.
I personally feel like
no, I don't think so.
I personally think if they did anything with the Fantasyland Theater, that's just going to be like one just set attraction within Fantasyland. That's not going to be like a whole nother land that's connected to it.
Yeah. And Matt Flores, thank you so much, brother, for the donation. $2 donation from Matt Flores. Thank you, sir. He says 7,000 layoffs and Avatar Land is not coming. See, I disagree, Matt. I respectfully disagree. These things that Disney's building, like a Pandora, for example, right? It's stretched over many years.
Yes.
The layoffs are very much a today issue for sure, right? But this any kind of new land coming to Disneyland, Pandora or otherwise, is going to be a multi-year project, and I just don't think it's going to impact that much. And like we said in Iger's statement at the quarterly earnings, I mean, he is putting this experience, he's talking about it in the same breath as Galaxy's Edge and Pandora and Animal Kingdom. I mean, if it wasn't something significant, why would he do that? Why would he make a fool of himself?
And we have talked about this before, that the 7,000 layoffs of the cast members, these are more of a higher tiered cast member layoff. It's not going to be, the typical cast members that are help running the daily operations in the parks. Like, these are like more towards the studio side. That's more internal of where the issues are coming from throughout the company.
Right. It's mostly studio, and not a lot of it's coming from the park side. Not that the park side is totally immune to these layoffs. They absolutely not. But they are, like you said, George, they will be coming, but it'll be higher middle management kind of positions. But the parks are the only division of the company right now making money. So they're going to invest, in my opinion, in that part of the company. That's the only thing making any money right now. Go ahead, Dre.
They're and even though we didn't get an expansion of budget when it came to the capital expenditure, at least for this fiscal year, because I think originally it was going to be 6.7 billion. Unfortunately, it's going to be just 6 billion, which is not great. You do have a lot of projects wrapping up here, and you have to continually invest in these parks. And if you were going to invest any amount of money into anything, what's the safest bet right now? And remember, Bob Iger, he's thinking about that legacy. James Cameron, he's thinking about his own as well.
Right.
Avatar would make the most sense as far as the cuts go. And this gets tricky because we're talking about $5.5 billion in savings. That's not a light number, right? You have to remember that a lot of people from and this is the sources that I'm gathering this information from, there was supposed to be a reduction in workforce from the Fox acquisition. That never happened. And so you have a lot of people that have redundant positions and so forth. I would say expect those to be trimmed. And from the Parks division, from that, a lot of it is unfortunately operations, and not necessarily creative places, nor frontline cast members. I want to be very, very clear about that. So, it's tough because he, on the one hand, Iger is saying big expansion coming. On the other hand, is saying we're in panic mode. On the other hand, he's saying dividends. It's all kind of very, very complex, and you have to think from the time Avatar was first announced back in its association with Disney Parks back in 2011, right? Well, Avatar Land itself didn't open until 2017.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, that took a long time. You got to think in that kind of time scale when it comes to an addition like this.
No, 100%. And that's what I was trying to say. Like, this is going to be stretched over so many fiscal periods. And it's not like, I get it. Like, today they're cutting back. Today, right now they're going to cut 7,000 jobs. But the situation in 2 and 3 years from now is not going to be this bleak. Hopefully not. But,
that's a true train coming.
There it comes. Here it comes.
There we go. The true train right behind George. Yeah.
Watch out there. Watch out. But look, I remember on the eve of, to Bob Iger's credit, and this is what initially made me an Iger fan, because we were all kind of very speculative of how Bob Iger was going to actually do in his initial days following Michael Eisner, right? He approves the California Adventure 2.0 project, right? And then right after that, the financial collapse of 2008 actually happens. And remember, that's not going to open until 2012. You got 4 years until this actually opens, and a significant amount of money. We're talking $1.2 billion at that time when the company is half its size.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, right? And no, Bob Iger was like, look, conditions will change. Market will get better. We'll be ready for them. And he kept on doing it at a very
could
controversial
that essentially be why the 7,000 cast member layoffs are accruing, that if it's not really necessarily towards the parks because it's $5.5 billion save, that it can then become a trajectory to stretch to kind of maybe put more profit into the parks?
What you got to
it's
think,
coming
George.
from the studio side. So if he's cutting like a little bit more of the internal cast members that maybe not needed for the studio side, could that eventually be used, even though that he didn't raise the amount for parks, but could that be used over a period of time to stretch it out, as you had mentioned, like 4, 5, 6 years down the road?
Of course. I mean, you got to think the studio is not doing all that well. It's still incurring. I mean, the last quarter, the DTC division incurred a $1 billion loss. Just from right there. I think I was getting numbers from Valiant Renegade, and according to them, at Pro as well, they were saying that all in Disney's in like $12 billion, and that includes the losses that they've already incurred and the $4 billion buyout of Bandpeck and so forth, right? For this kind of infrastructure. You have to think, George, a lot of the places where they're losing money is going to be in the studio. That's where those cuts are going to be. Just like OG said, the parks are making money.
Right.
They're making money. It would be irrational not to invest in them. Sort of like a certain predecessor, but we'll get into that.
And you bring up I'm really glad you brought this up, Dre. We've already seen Iger, maybe not in this exact financial situation, but we saw him with DCA 2.0, and he was still full steam ahead with that project despite the Great Recession of 2008, I believe.
Yes.
He still was full steam. He understood. And look, if you look at the history of Disney since Iger took over the first time, he was up until Chapek ran the parks in like 2015. It was a solid tenure with the parks. I mean, we got DCA 2.0, which included Cars Land, Buena Vista Street, World of Color. We got Pandora greenlit. We got a brand new park in Shanghai, which is a cool park location. I get it. That's not the greatest spot in the world to build a park, but it was still a quality park. The experiences, that the theme park stuff that were built up until like Chapek took over the parks were really, really good. High quality. Now, when Chapek took over in 2015, you started to see that quality dip with like Pixar Pier and even Avengers Campus. But really before Chapes was involved, it was good. So I have faith in Iger, and Iger is going to want to go out with a bang. He's going to want to have that legacy secured. He's going to want to put his name on a quality area. He's not going to want to put his name on some cheap pop-up meet and greet thing. They announced at the earnings call. He's not going to do that. He's really going to want to go out with the bang. So
well, and this is why all eyes are on Josh D'Amaro right now, because he really hasn't brought forward that many projects. Right? You look at the initial Iger era. To your point, OG, I think you're completely correct. Those projects were quality before Chapek. Well, who was in charge of these divisions before? Tom Staggs, John Lasseter, and so forth, right? George, you bring it up all the time. John Lasseter really fought for quality, and he did. He fought it really, really hard. Well, now, this Josh D'Amaro here, are you going to fight for it, or are you just going to let it slide? This is really crunch time here. How good are these new projects announced from this era of an administration actually going to be? It's going to be very contingent on Josh and everybody below him.
Yep. And BJ Vincent, friend of the channel. What's up, BJ, with a $5 donation. Thank you so much, BJ. BJ says here, could they put Pandora next to Tomorrowland by completely removing the launch bay, Zootopia, and the Finding Nemo submarine voyage? Well, that's interesting. We're kind of saying that, except the launch bay. We're not including that, but we're saying it'll be Zootopia, the Nemo subs, and the old motorboat cruise area.
Yeah.
But maybe they do that. Maybe they kind of cut into Tomorrowland a little bit and take away the launch bay. That's an interesting idea.
Because that would kind of save them, the hassle of really how do they recreate Tomorrowland? Because we really haven't had anything that is substantial that they could retheme as an updated Tomorrowland. I mean, I know we got those renderings of, everyone thought at the expo that we were going to get a big Tomorrowland announcement, which obviously we didn't. But I mean, that could help the best of both worlds. You get Pandora in Disneyland, and it kind of cuts off some of the notion of Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
BJ, thank you for the super chat here. I mean, very much thank you, and everybody who has super chatted so far. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. But people are kind of saying in the chat, "Oh, it could work here, it could work here, it could work here." Couple things on that. One, a Pandora or attraction size expansion. Think bigger than just let's say the Golden State area of California Adventure, or the what is it, Tom Sawyer's Island. This would be you'd have a lot of demand for an attraction like this, right? And Tomorrowland is tricky. Actually, Tom Sawyer's Island, there was a concept back before Star Wars Galaxy's Edge when they had a lot of land back there for Tom Sawyer's Island. They don't really much have any more, so that's why this plan didn't actually go forward. But they were going to build an attraction on the island itself, have tunnels where you can actually go back and forth on the island. It was a pretty cool idea, but that's all a wash now. But for Tomorrowland specifically, stand right next to the big ball, right? They have a name for it, but it's Kugler. Anyway, the ball, right? Stand right to the ball. Do a 360 there. See how many facilities are empty. Starcade, the Magic Eye Theater, the Interventions Building, it's just the Observatron and everything there. Tomorrowland needs a lot of work. So when George says, "Hey, Avatar, maybe," it is a distinct possibility. You could, hit a couple of birds with just one stone. Would they necessarily do that? I'm not sure. James Cameron, he's not really about
sharing the spotlight.
Other assets, right?
Yeah,
he's more about, I'm gonna make my mark here.
Right.
So that's what you have to consider.
Yeah, 100%. Now we're going to pivot now to our next topic. We're going to Animal Kingdom now. Animal Kingdom, because there are rumors. And I think it's from Blog Mickey. I'll go ahead and share your screen in a second, Dre. The Blog Mickey article that I guess Dinosaur over there at Animal Kingdom is being rumored to be rethemed to Zootopia. Now, this is an interesting concept because you could take those vehicles, you can turn them into a little cop car like that. I can kind of see this. Now, look, I don't know. From what I've heard and from what I've personally seen online, I haven't been there yet, the dinosaur attraction, I don't know. It's kind of always lived in the shadow of Indiana Jones Adventure, right? It's kind of like DCA's Tower of Terror. It's always kind of been like the light version of that ride.
Correct.
Dinosaur feels like that. I know it's a different theme. It just feels like the light version of Indy. Maybe Zootopia, might put a little life into that attraction. George, you're the Walt Disney World guy. What do you think?
Yeah. And I'm actually glad you brought this up because this is what I was just going to mention, that when they gave us the tremendous announcement at the D23 Expo of this what if, woohoo, that that when they showed us the rendering, that this rendering is more a little bit fleshed out than the one that was What's Beyond Big Thunder. So this one I feel that is kind of more thought of for the next project moving ahead for Walt Disney World. And it would make total sense because when, and we talked about this before on the show, but when you look at this rendering and you kind of look at a park map of Animal Kingdom of what's there now, when you look at the location of where the Zootopia area would be, it's back where Dinosaur is. Yeah. And so what better way to then put an attraction that they can just kind of reskin or retheme? They can keep the same vehicles, they could keep the same track layout, but just retheme it to Zootopia. And I think that's kind of where their mindset is. And kind of going back to the earnings call that Bob Iger, along with talking about Avatar to Tomorrow, that morning, he had also mentioned to him, look into other popular franchises that they can incorporate into the parks. Well, Iger also dropped the bomb of there's going to be a Toy Story 5, a Frozen 3, and a Zootopia 2, along with the Zootopia shorts that are already presented on Disney Plus and the original 2016 film. I think it's a safe bet when you look at all the facts that are kind of in front of us. I feel that it's pretty much a done deal that Zootopia is not only going to go into Animal Kingdom, but I feel like the e-ticket attraction for that land is going to be replacing Dinosaur.
I think the thing that we know for sure, right, is that both Disney and WDI are unhappy with the dinosaur attraction, right? They're unhappy with, and not the ride vehicle itself. The ride vehicle, the ride system itself is fantastic and presents a litany of opportunities. It's just the theme, right?
Yes.
It's they're not. I know, showcase in the chat. I know. It's just save Countdown to Extinction. We know the love of dinos showcase. I do apologize. I'm going to have to speak objectively, but trust me, your sentiment is very much considered, right? But speaking objectively, we got to save our dinos for sure. But the theme is just it's not great. And like you said, OG, everybody kind of sees Dinosaur as the weaker version of the enhanced motion vehicle attractions, right, as compared to Indiana Jones. And so I think a retheme is very much in its future. It's just we heard discussions about maybe bringing Indiana Jones to Animal Kingdom, right, and integrating it amongst the other kind of themes that are associated with Animal Kingdom, right? But the prospect of bringing Zootopia, I think it's a pretty decent one, because you wouldn't necessarily have to construct a new ride system entirely. You could retheme it, reskin it, do the exterior of it, and you could use a lot of what you've already developed for Shanghai's version for this one. Obviously staged differently, obviously, a couple of tweaks here and there, but you can do it. And it's almost kind of the reverse of what's going on in Hong Kong, right? So Hong Kong is adapting the Maelstrom version of the Frozen Ever After attraction that exists at Epcot, right? But it's utilizing a new building, new ride system, all that kind of stuff. Well, now you're taking an original attraction and adapting those assets to, let's say, an overlay like this. But I think it could be done very, very well. So, George, I think Blog Mickey might have something here.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel that too, because Dre and we talked about this before, because there was. Remember, you and I thought that maybe Dinosaur was going to go down permanently when the dinos were not working properly, and Disney really wasn't addressing them to get them fixed. Well, obviously they did fix them, but I think that they fixed them to just have them run its course. I do feel like in time that they're not going to do a major refurb on this attraction due to the fact, because I think eventually it's going to go down to be rethemed to Zootopia. And Damaro had already mentioned that even though it was a type of a what if could be seminar type thing for the parks panel, that just the fact that they brought it up, right, it's already circulating in their minds that this is what they're going to do. Right.
Exactly. And I think Zootopia, I think it's a good fit. There's a lot of, from what I understand, there's some kiddie rides in here, and then so if you put Zootopia in there, you're still kind of like satisfying that itch for having like an area for like young kids and families, because Zootopia very much is of that, right? So you're just getting a better themed, probably more immersive experience. You're not losing that demographic either by removing it and adding Zootopia. You're probably even gaining a little bit. So I think it's going to happen.
I have
I don't know.
Few things. Netiznem, yes, the Zootopia ride system is different than the Dinosaur ride system. That is for sure. And that's why we're talking about restaging those things or adapting those things for a different ride system. And if you think it might be unlikely, let's do it this way. If you had Rise as done with EMVs rather than, let's say, trackless vehicles, does that experience substantially change? Or can you restage around that? You probably could, right? And so that would be, I think, a similar setup for Dinosaur into Zootopia. Now, there are benefits from the trackless ride system. They allow you to kind of hold on scenes longer and so forth, and let things play out I think you can restage those and adapt those very easily for a different ride system, and so that's kind of the prospect that we're talking about here. But I wanted to go ahead and comment on a few things. You can sort of similarly think of this with what's happening right now with Splash Mountain. So I know you guys just had a show where I unfortunately was not present. I do apologize. However, George, I think you made the comment that they're very kind of different rides. Splash Mountain at Disneyland and Splash Mountain at Magic Kingdom. Yes, they are very, very different. So different that Sharita Carter and Carmen Smith are ahead of this project, right? But it's two subgroups. It's two teams that are doing one and the other. There will be overlap in story, and there will be overlap in various props and assets, but it's two teams because they are so different, right? And I would think you could kind of think of this in a very similar fashion. Two different rides, of course, but there still are assets in which you can adapt for one to the other or reuse or whatever. Indiana Jones specifically, I think you guys mentioned Indiana Jones as well, talking about that. And George, I think we were going off of the listing of operational by. What is it, March 26th, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I just wanted to go ahead and clarify with what's going on in Indiana Jones, because I happen to know a little bit, based on all the information of the previous refurb that was supposed to get in 2020 and what they're actually doing now. They're doing two things, I believe. One is the Disabled Assistance Service line, let's say, right? Or Disability Access Service line, and how you get in and out of that attraction has always been very kind of complicated, because remember, this was a ride before kind of the new ADA improvements that we've made for attractions now, and it was before FastPass, and the demarcation point is very early in that attraction's lifespan. That's why you have to go that's why you have to stay outside basically until you actually get into the temple, because there's no way to really demarcate in the temple itself, whereas that would normally happen, right? They're adjusting that whole thing, that whole interplay. The second thing they're doing is obviously a lot of interior work on the actual attraction itself. I think there will be effects that will be made to work. The snake obviously is a big one, right? But hey, maybe we do get, I don't know, a projection effect for the ice making thing. That would be very, very cool. Maybe, possibly, pray to God. Okay. But the big thing is operationally, that whole software setup for that hasn't been updated since 95.
Windows 95, baby. Windows 95.
And remember the computers you used to have in 95, okay? It's still very much based on that, and it hasn't been updated. And that's why the attraction goes down the way it does and so forth, right? So one of the big reasons why this update is actually taking place is to provide it a completely new software system to actually operate that attraction. Well, operationally then, it's kind of a new ride. Right, so there would be a test and adjust that would actually have to happen. To your point, George, that I think that would probably need to take place. Now, I'm not very familiar with Disney's internal labeling system when it comes to those things. So operational, it might mean test and adjust, but it seems pretty definitive to me. But I'm also not quite on board with March 26th actually being the date. The reason why is, well, we still have the date listed as it being closed already. Now, I do hear that they are ahead of schedule, so maybe that's adjusted. But for right now, I think it might be a little bit more substantial, and it might be April. But we'll see.
Now, Dre, you weren't on that show. I think yesterday. In terms of let's talk indie now. I mean, why not? There's a lot going on with this attraction. Why not?
Cool.
What do you think? Now, George and I were talking about it. Like, both of us kind of agree, like, we're not going to see a lot of Dial of Destiny stuff in this attraction. Maybe some Easter eggs, but we're not going to get a Phoebe Waller-Bridge animatronic, nothing like that. Is that kind of where you're at with this?
Yes, absolutely. We're not going to see a Phoebe Waller-Bridge animatronic. We might see, like, let's say a misspelled letter. A letter featured in the queue, for example, right in that little office right there. I could see a little Easter egg right there. I could see some props, maybe even along the ride track itself, if they are ambitious enough. We did see some minor changes to Indiana Jones when the attraction opened from a refurbishment after the opening of Crystal Skull back in Crystal Skull was 2008,
2008.
Yeah, 8, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Been a
so a
long
few
time.
years after that fact, they updated Indy and his actual position. You remember he was holding the doors closed with his whole back, and there's actually a maquette of this at the Disney 100 display that's actually in the Opera House right now at Disneyland. You should go check it out. That is not the configuration as it exists currently in the attraction. Currently, in the attraction, he's kind of holding it one arm, and
Right.
he's shutting it down. He's like, go left, that kind of thing. That was an update, and his a vastly improved from that point on. Expect that kind of stuff.
Totally.
Wouldn't expect anything very, very substantial. But
Yeah.
hey, you never know. I mean, Carmen's, what is it, Trita Carter? One of her first big projects was adding projection effects to the doorway. That the door effect that didn't unfortunately doesn't work anymore, and the statue of Mora. Hey, you never know. We might get
And now she moved up to Bayou Mist.
so much potential. Go ahead, OG. What's
next on the docket is, well, you said it, misspelling. Misspelling. This is a fascinating thing because we've been plagued by this. I do not know what's going on. Disney, I love you, Disney, but like, what's going on with everything being misspelled on all the banners and the signage? We have yet again another example of this happening
today. So as you'll
Main Street USA.
Main Street USA. You'll remember that the Super Bowl is actually played, Super Bowl 57, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'm reading my Roman numerals correctly, and I should know this because I'm a football fan, but obviously the Kansas City Chiefs won in an incredible game that was played for all the masses. We will get into some of the things that were actually showcased during that Super Bowl later on in this
I don't know
show,
what I'm
but-
more excited about, that the Chiefs won or that they kicked the Eagles' ass. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And it looked like the Eagles, they had them on the ropes for a second, but those second half adjustments were very, very impressive. Credit to Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and everybody else as part of the Kansas City Chiefs. However, because they won, they obviously have to do the whole, you're going to Disneyland thing, obviously, right? Which has been a very successful and incredible campaign for Disney resorts going back now, 30 years, maybe longer. Okay. And now you have Patrick Mahomes actually making his appearance, and now we actually get this sign right here. So this is hot off the press, boys. Main Street USA. And this follows, Matterhorn opening in 55, Snow White opening in 1939. What is it?
The misquoting.
Archaeology.
It all started with a mouse.
With a mouse and not by a mouse, which now is not actually there. That statue's no longer there. So that's obviously being updated for those purposes. But you had the signage outside of Indiana Jones, right? Archaeology misspelled. Site and not sight lines, but not actual site, like construction site, right? They used the wrong cadence there. What is it? Redford, Connecticut, not Bedford, Connecticut, so forth. What is going on? Guys, I'm losing my mind here. I am losing it because Disneyland previously, they would make headlines if anybody pointed out an error. I remember reading OC articles about that, right? Orange County Register articles. And now this, what is going on? Guys, please explain this to me.
And here's the thing, I'm pretty forgiving. I'm not like a total, I'm not a Karen where I'm going to, oh my God, one mistake. This is not one mistake. This is banner after banner after banner for the Disney 100 thing. This sign, the Indiana Jones signage, just over and
but it's not even just with misspelling. It's with proper
Factual
context.
errors,
It's
grammatical errors.
I mean, it's like, come on, did they hire 5-year-olds to do this? I mean, seriously, I would think that they would, someone that has a portfolio that's going to be making signs for Disney, that they would again check your work, because I do know that sometimes things can get through like a printer type of thing where, it gets, but you check your work and you double check your work.
You double check it and triple check. And this is beyond that. This is mistake after mistake. And like I said before, I can handle a mistake here or there occasionally, far and few between. But when everything everything they're releasing right now has an error, a spelling error on it. That's why we were all the three of us with the 100th decor. We were all like, oh, they had to have outsourced this. And we heard from our source, they didn't. It's done internally. So what changed? What is going on? Did he cut some sort of like QA process or something? Because this is not okay. This is not okay.
Have the timelines been diminished for this kind of work? Have the staff been cut down or something? What is causing this? Because now we're into the thousands of dollars here in terms of new signs and new props and so forth, banners that have to be replaced here. We're talking a substantial amount. And, well, I would be remiss if we didn't actually share what's going on screen right now.
Should I play the Captain D drop just one more time?
Yeah,
I think you should. Come on, $20 super chat. Let's go.
There it is. There it is. Captain John D with a $20 donation. Captain, thank you so much, brother. That means the world to us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Extremely generous of you, sir. He says here, thoughts on the Disney 100-year SV commercial, fellas. Could have used more classic Disney, in my opinion. Misspellings in honor for the topic. Fantastic, John. Fantastic.
I don't know what's more. I don't know what's. Sorry, OG. I don't know what's sad that I actually understood that, but it's
Michael Lee with the comment. By the way, Disney fired 7,000 spell checkers.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly it.
That's amazing.
So here's the thing. So Disney released a actually what I thought was a fantastic ad for their 100th anniversary during the Super Bowl, right? Yes. And it was a collection of imagery from the films over the last 100 years, animation and live action, kind of interwoven with families kind of celebrating Disney together as a family, right? I thought it was actually a pretty good mix of classic. I mean, we saw Peter Pan, Mary Poppins, Alice, Mickey. There was kind of a lot in there, classic, but then they had the new stuff too. They had a lot of Encanto and some of the live action remakes, but I actually thought it was a good little mix. But Dre, you were not involved in that conversation with George and I yesterday. What are your thoughts on the ad? Do you agree with John that maybe they could have used a little more classic Disney? Maybe it was the right amount? Where you at?
Yeah, well, yeah. Initially, when I saw the ad, because I actually saw it when it debuted on the Super Bowl, I understand it was posted before, but I kind of wanted to wait and kind of see how I felt about it in the context in which they've chosen. So, waited for it, saw it. Couple things. One, I would have preferred a little bit more nostalgia. Do we have to always reference stuff only 20 years, since the Iger era, basically, and really kind of focus on that. However, you have to also understand this is in the context of the Super Bowl, right? A lot of people are going to be watching, and a lot of people who aren't maybe necessarily into Disney as hardcore as we are. Right. You have to play to the widest demographic possible. It's probably going to be your most relevant franchises and so forth. That's what you actually showcase there. But also, too, OG, I think you make a great point here. The Disney 100 commercial showcased heavily, and I think Pro also put this in his article about this whole thing. Grogu, Rey, BB-8, and they all got multiple appearances within this, whereas everybody else kind of got one, right? Even the parks weren't as heavily showcased as I would have preferred, because really this is supposed to be a showcase of Disney 100 and all its product lines, right? Why not show the parks more? I think Corliss made that point, but what are they showcasing? Are they giving you a glimpse into the future? I think they are. Yes. Now, the New York Times is actually saying that they utilized credits that they actually had, advertising credits for these commercials. So maybe that's why their showcase during this time was a little bit more robust, because they already had credits to spend on this, so it wasn't quite the investment. But I think it bumped the Little Mermaid trailer that they were supposed to have as well for this. Right. So that's a very interesting thing.
It's interesting. So yeah, you're right. They purposely, in my opinion, and I think I think Pro also mentioned this. They had a lot of Rey in there, we've been hearing a lot. There's been a lot of smoke in regards to the future of the sequel trilogy characters. We've heard rumors that, well, actually, I think it was even confirmed that Daisy Ridley was seen at Lucasfilm recently. And now, like 3-4 years after the sequel trilogy ended, now she's heavily featured in this 100th advertisement for the Super Bowl. I'm calling it right now. I think there's something going on with her character. I don't know if it's a movie. I don't know if it's a TV show or a streaming thing or whatever. Something's going on with that. But I do want to bring this up real quick because Rogue Attraction, friend of the channel, subscribe to his YouTube. He's phenomenal. But he says here, after the Proud Family stuff, Disney needs better PR moves. I want to share something though, because this is actually relevant to what he's saying and the ad. This was shared by Scott Gooston. And hold on one sec. Let me just so you guys can actually see it. Okay. So Scott Gooston here says the Disney 100 Super Bowl ad was the best of the night, according to System 1, a platform that ranks ad effectiveness based on emotional responses. The system assigns a star rating from 1 to 5.9. Disney received a 5.3, according to System 1. Only 1% of ads received more than 5 stars. This ad that they showed, this Disney 100 ad, was extremely successful. Like Scott was saying here, it's very rare for anything to get over 5, and this ad did that. Now, it pertains to Rogue's comment about Disney and PR. Disney is making, in my opinion, under Bob Iger, and I understand the Proud Family thing 100%, and I'll get to that in a second, but I think under Bob Iger, I think Disney has started to rebuild its goodwill and rebuild its relationship with fans and cast members and everything. You're seeing morale. We've been at the parks, all 3 of us. The morale has improved with cast. I think there's this little things here and there that are starting to improve. You're seeing it here with Disney 100, that rebuilding of that reputation. Disney's taken a beating PR-wise, especially during the Bob Chapek era. And look, we're not there yet. It's not fixed yet. But I do think Iger is very much a PR guy. He understands optics. And I think we're moving in the right direction. Now, in regards to the Proud Family thing, one thing that we all have to remember with that, right? TV shows and movies and content in general take years to develop. So everything we're seeing now is a product of 2, 3, and 4 years ago. So we can't really put that in the current situation. I know it was released recently, but that episode and this whole thing was in the works for years. So we're going to have that residual stuff starting to come out now. But I do think Disney is changing, and I do think that we're going to see a little difference in approach with a lot of that political messaging and what have you. But Dre, what are your thoughts on the ad, on what Rogue was saying with the Proud Family and the PR? What are your thoughts on this, brother?
To be in the 1 percentile is huge. It's an astounding accomplishment, and an otherwise. I thought the ads were kind of mediocre. That one really stuck. That one really I remembered it. Now, obviously, I'm a big Disney fan, and we do the show and so forth, so that obviously has a lot to do with it, but it stood out, and I think it stood out in a good way, and even people, who are, I think, let's say like Megyn Kelly, right? Not the biggest Disney fan. She even said it's a great ad. I just wish the company embodied what it represented. That kind of thing. Like, it's a backhand compliment, but she acknowledged it was good, right? It's gonna take a lot of time to undo a lot of this stuff. A lot of the bad PR. It's not, and it is discouraging to see stuff like the Proud Family make its way on the TV screens and featuring the messages it does, and having it be so overt, and having it be so in your face. And I understand, we got Splash Mountain and stuff like that, and it's all just, it's a cumulative effect. But like OG says, it's going to take time. Well, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
No. I think this is a step in the right direction. And look, you're not going to get rid of let's say the activism, right, overnight, and maybe almost not at all, but can we make it less overt? Right. And can we focus at least on the audience and focus at least on making films that are appealing to the widest gambit possible? I was just doing some research in James Cameron. We had a conversation about this before the actual show, right, and how he is very much like, hey, look, listen, I there might be things I want to do with my film, right? Like Titanic, for example, I want to see the actual wreck itself. I actually want to see it hit the ground. I want to put this on the big screen, and I want to dive in the depths and actually see it firsthand. And that's why I'm making this movie, to do all that stuff, right? But I'm never going to lose sight of the audience. It's always going to be entertaining first. And it's always I'm going to have a story and something to bring people in. And get them as passionate about these things as I am, but through a way that is very intriguing to the widest selection possible. Even Avatar, right? It's one of the reasons why it's an international success 2 times in a row. It's cross-generational. It's cross-cultural. It's trans and international, right? It just goes everywhere and it appeals to everybody and really kind of finds that human condition and that human story that we all relate to, right? And that's beyond boundary, beyond language, beyond whatever. Got to get back to that. You got to get back to that. Even if there's, in the case of Avatar, right, there's an ecological message there, right? In Titanic, there's a message about, even climate change there, if you really look into it. But it's all about the story. And it's all about, getting people, enticed and, let's say, excited about characters that they're actually seeing on screen. And that story, that how is how you communicate with people, how you reverberate your message to people, and maybe they're more sympathetic to what you're trying to preach rather than just preaching to them in the way that Proud Family does.
Now, in regard to the Proud Family, and a lot of people aren't bringing this up. This was actually brought to my attention from our friend Disney Glimpses, and look. I think this is a very, very valid point that people need to at least acknowledge it. The Proud Family show right now is rated PG. So it's not, if you have Disney Plus and your kid is on the kid platform or the kid profile, they don't have access to that show. I think that's a very important distinction here. Now, look, that doesn't mean kids aren't going to be able to see it. Every household is different, but I think that needs to at least be acknowledged in this conversation. It is not G, it is PG. There is parental guidance ahead of it. I think that's an important thing to kind of bring up here. But we'll see. It's getting a lot of bad press. Let's just say that though, for sure. So
it is, and I think it's getting hounded on Rotten Tomatoes. And I think the season itself, if you look at it, and if you look into the actual episode itself, it's even below that. So
can I
these
ask
things
one,
weren't. Oh, go ahead.
But can I ask one thing about this? And
sure,
again,
yeah.
I'm not a fan of the original show. I'm not a fan of this one. And then
after you're done, I also want to address to that point as well. But
sure.
Sure.
Okay, this show is for kids. I mean, young, 11, 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
Do we really believe that the audience watching this show jumped on Rotten Tomatoes and voted for this thing? No. Or is this people who don't agree with it politically going on there and voting for it? And that's all I'm saying. I'm highly suspect of this. Yeah. Okay. So it's not,
of course. I mean, obviously,
right.
Those things. I'm not saying, OG, that this is like a good poll. It's not. Okay. I'm just saying it wasn't well liked, just generally, and they were enthusiastic about voting to actually contribute to it. Right. That kind of gives you its score. But remember, this is a show for children.
That's what I was just going to say.
Having so many messages so over. That's what's got people upset.
That's what I was getting at, and this is actually the backlash that a lot of people were talking about with South Park on Comedy Central, where when you look at an animated cartoon, people are under the assumption, oh, it's a cartoon, it's for kids. Well, obviously, South Park is not for children. No. It's on an adult-driven media channel. When you take a show like Proud Family, it is on a Disney platform. When you think of Disney, you think of it's a child-driven, family-oriented type of material. And not to mention a show that had already previously been on Disney Channel. I grew up with the Proud Family, and I just pretty much dated myself. But it's like, but I mean, like I wasn't a huge fan of the show, but I mean, I would see it on Disney Channel time, and to take characters that people were already familiar with, and then you go and throw a specific agenda to it. That's when you're playing a field that it shouldn't be. And it's because it's a children's show that you're putting Disney's name on it, and it's like it's not a good look.
And I ask this, it's sincerely, would you want Disney creating content utilizing these characters and I don't know, forwarding stuff about, I don't know, let's say some red-hatted slogans, right? That would be going on there, and a lot of what the another side preaches and so forth. Probably not, right? You would not want that, nor would you want to expose your kid to it. Well, if you have a visceral reaction from that, I can tell you right now that people, in maybe in places that I don't know, or overlooked or not considered or whatever, places of the rest of Middle America, they have that kind of overt reaction to this stuff. Why are we pushing people away at a time when the company really needs to coalesce and bring as many people into these films as possible, or these TV projects as possible? I mean, you just had Disney Plus incur a $2.4 million loss in subscribers. Now, a lot of that was India, but they didn't have a growth either, so there was a delta there, right? So, it's if you didn't add 5, add 10, add 15, that's your delta of which you didn't actually aspire to. Got to bring people in here, and this is just going to continue to turn people away here. We really need to rethink this, and I think that's what they're getting, and I think they might be responding to it. This is why Bob Iger, accountability. That's why he's pushing that, because he's like, look, listen, we can't have $200 million pet projects. They really do have to appeal to the widest gamut possible, and I think that goes for these kind of shows as well.
And it's just like how OG had mentioned earlier that so many things were already in the pipeline during the time where people were up in arms about it. So Disney felt like, okay, we got to address this. How do we do it? We do it this way. And it's, you kind of have to, basically, how do I say it? Take a laxative and flush it all out.
Exactly. And BJ Vincent here says, the problem is people feel the episode in question on the Proud Family is pushing a particular agenda. No, they absolutely are, BJ, and they absolutely are. That's exactly what it is, and I think that this is that like overt, I think it was John D called it overtly political. This kind of stuff needs to stop at Disney. You got to stop putting this stuff. This is what got you in hot water in Florida. Okay. Just stop with this stuff. And look, I'm all for inclusive entertainment. You want to make a film about different cultures, what have you. That's awesome. We got great content from that. Coco and Kanto, a lot of great stuff. That's all really good. But when you go in here with this really, really overt political messaging, it's no go. So they got to put a stop to that.
Wizard, you're exactly correct about that. It did start under Iger. It did. And he doubled down on it and said, and he even has made references recently. Well, you got to take a stand on issues, even if you don't, even if you're going to get some pushback and so forth, even though people are not going to like it. We have responsibility to take a stand. Okay, yeah, but you got to make some money. and that is the bigger problem right now. And yes, this is why I say, you're never really gonna get rid of this activist contingent, right? That's what it is, right? And it's a cultural thing in that town as well, right? You have people that are very removed from lots of outstanding parts of America, right? And limited life experience, and and let's be honest, they many of them produce products for themselves, right, and not towards a wider audience. The fact, though, is Disney was a company that was founded, built, and budgeted, even recently, on films and products that go across the spectrum in terms of culture, in terms of language, in terms of gender, in terms of age, in terms of whatever. 4-quadrant filmmaking, 4-quadrant products, that's what they specialize in, and that's what these movies have been budgeted for.
Right.
you can't just push people away. You either have to severely reduce the budget, which limits your reach and your financial potential, or you have to change course. And I think they are, Wizard.
Yeah.
I think Iger is recognizing that he will always be of a certain political side.
Of course.
Doesn't have to be so overt, though.
Well, and here's the thing. Wizard said, yeah, started under Iger. It absolutely did. But here's the thing. I think a lot of people kind of put this as like Disney's on like a mission to like make your kids like, you know, progressive or something. I don't think that's that deep. I really don't. I still think it's about money. They think that woke sells. I'll give you an example as to why I still think they're in that mindset. If you look at even the way Disney markets films like Black Panther in China, it's much different than they market here in America, right?
True.
So look at how they market Black Panther, where they hide Chadwick Boseman and all that stuff, right? Really kind of gross tactics, right?
Very gross, yes.
They're telling you that this progressivism is not a value of the company. It's a marketing tool in the States because they think that that's what people want. Once it no longer sells, they'll drop it. Now, look, Bob Iger was not a far lefty back in the day. I remember I used to be a Bernie bro back in 2016. Him and Bernie Sanders would go at it constantly. I remember the big fights Bernie and Iger had. Iger telling Bernie, how many jobs have you created, Bernie? And yet he was not a far lefty. He was a Hillary Clinton Democrat. And then all of a sudden it became kind of trendy to go far, far left. And now all of a sudden he's like, you know, the king of progressive, right? A lot of this stuff is just where they think people, it's trendy and they think that's where the money's at. So they gravitate. But the minute the bottom falls out, they'll revert back to where they think the money's at. And you're starting to see that. Go ahead, George.
And to go off what you were just saying, OG, that just take that as an example with Strange World. That, and I actually just got done watching it the other night. You take a film like that, and without actually Iger saying it, and he actually mentioned it in the quarterly earnings, why are they doing a Toy Story 5? Why are they doing a Zootopia 2? Why are they doing a Frozen 3? Why? Because they know it sells. They know it's a set of films that can already know that they'll have money in the bank the second it hits theaters. Right. Or Disney Plus, because when they take an original film,
it's a risk
that if it's good, but the way that they're taking an original film already, they're losing money.
But see, I understand. And Captain John D, I think this goes to your point, legacy, right? Every single decision is based on legacy. And I do agree in multiple ways. One of those being the Zootopia 2, the Moana, what is it, Toy Story 5, Frozen 3, all that kind of stuff, right? That's part of that. And it's the safest bet right now when you have limited CapEx and you have to be very picky on projects and so forth. Do you go original? That's not been working out well. Do you actually go to your brand, your core franchises, and dig deeper? As a short-term solution, yes, but still, though, I think they're attacking a problem in which is not going to be solved by the decisions that they're making. They don't have a spending problem, and they don't have a kind of original versus franchise problem as much as they do a creative one. And this is where I disagree with you, OG. I think you have people within the company right now who are not motivated by money, not motivated by fame. They're not motivated by telling the best story possible. I think they are motivated by the culture that has permeated in Hollywood, frankly, and they have limited their view, let's say, to that area of the United States, right? And through choice or through subconscious action, I think they have not been as inclusive of other parts of the United States, other cultures, and so forth. They include who they want to include, and they tell the stories they want to tell them, and in the manner or world that they want to represent. And it's not necessarily translating to these other markets, to these various international markets and so forth. You talk about the advertising for Wakanda, right? For Black Panther, and how that's different for China. Remember, the people marketing these films aren't the people making them 9 times out of 10, especially for international territories where you have a group that's necessarily located in and around that country marketing that film towards those people right there. the people making the product, the people, baking the bread and all that, I think they have a much different motivation than maybe your marketing department does, or maybe other areas of the company. And that kind of divide right there, I think that's why Bob Iger is kind of saying accountability. Look, you want to preach the message, fine. It's got to make money, though. And I just don't think it's possible. Even if you take the franchises that they have, I think your potential for revenue income, it all hinges on the creative and those decisions that they make there.
Yeah, and they're going to dip into these wells. I mean, look how much money Universal has made on bringing the Minions back yet again. And now they're bringing Puss in Boots back from a franchise from 2004 or something, Shrek.
Yeah.
This stuff makes money. But
It
like
does.
you said, Dre, they do have to also get their house in check and get the creative juices flowing again.
Yeah.
And really make some good decisions creatively. And I think they will. I think the pressure's on now. I mean, Iger says accountability, right? Jennifer Lee doesn't perform. She's getting cut from the squad. You know?
can take a Toy Story and do it and all that, but if you don't make the best creative decisions, well, you get a Lightyear, right? So even that could lead you astray. Go ahead, George.
No, I was just going to add on and possibly take some literacy classes.
Yeah, spell check. Seriously, use the spell check. What are we doing, guys? Come on, you're embarrassing me now. This is a bad showcase of Disney Resort.
And honestly, it really is. It is embarrassing. It's like just all around. It's like they're so captivated by doing this one type of tone of storytelling that everything else is starting to become backseat, and it's getting sort of kind of somewhat abused,
Right.
because it's like you're so worried just to have a one-track mind. It's like you have to look at everything.
You do. Michael Lee says audiences are trained to wait 45 days for movies to hit Disney Plus. If it isn't an action film, reversing that mindset will be hard. If it is an action film. Well, I'll say this, I mean, I understand you're taking Avatar 2 into account. That was what I was going to point to. People are willing to wait for that just fine. I think they'll be willing to wait for some of these other films. If you have a great film, I don't care if it's action, drama, romance, nothing. If it's a great film, people are going to wait for it. And, especially if it includes incredible characters, whether they know or don't. So just saying, people will relearn if it's something worth waiting for or waiting for.
And I said it before, I'm not a fan of the Minion franchise at all, but people went to the theater for that movie. They did. I know. I don't know what they were thinking, but they did. They went to the theater for that movie. It made money. So why is that making money in the theater? And I guess Michael, okay, you can make the point Disney Plus, but even still, everyone knows Minions is going to land on a streamer, though. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And they still went to the theater,
Is it Netflix that they usually land on? I think it's Netflix.
I believe so.
I
think it's Netflix. Yeah.
And then for the live action slate, I think they land on Amazon Prime. So it'll land.
Yep. And Rogue Attraction says Puss in Boots was a great, no message, just family fun. I haven't seen it yet, but it looks really cute. It really does look cute. I'd much rather see that than Minions, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So, frankly, yes. What's the next on the agenda, OG?
Walt Disney World union negotiations. This is a doozy, man. We're going from hot topic to hot topic right now.
Wow, let's just do the politics. You know what, OG? Let's just spice it up a little bit. Let's talk about class. Let's talk about race. Let's talk about all politics. Let's do it. We're in it now.
Let's do it. Let's go for it. So Walt Disney World and cast member union negotiations resume February 15th after unionized Walt Disney World cast members overwhelmingly reject Disney's proposed $1 raise. Negotiations will resume next week on the 15th to the 16th. So this is interesting. I still contend, and I could be wrong, and I'm probably going to have to eat crow, or I don't know, but I think this is I think this is going to be like the carriage deals that you see all the time that make headlines, right? Disney's fighting with Charter Communications, and they're not going to play your favorite network because they're fighting, and yada, yada, yada. And there's all this pomp and circumstance. And at the end of the day, they come to a deal, and it's a big nothing. I think this is going to happen here. I think there's going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance, a lot of back and forth, a lot of headlines. And at the end of the day, they're going to come to a deal, and it's going to be like nothing ever happened. But Dre, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm sorry. Before you get
go
into it,
ahead,
George,
George.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, George.
No,
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 go
no,
ahead,
no,
go.
no,
You're
you're fine. I just wanted to just throw Think Park Casual. Nice to have all the non-controversial topics in one show.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also, you know what? Here, John D, you're right.
Yeah, there
Also,
you go,
awesome.
Captain John D.
Let's do it.
There we go.
Let's do it. Let's
There
do
we
it all.
go.
Okay, so a couple things on this. These things mysteriously have a way of working themselves out, which is really weird. but okay. That aside, here's my take on it. Okay. All right. It's kind of discouraging when you have Josh Diamaro, I should say. Sorry, George. When you have Josh Diamaro saying stuff like, "Oh, we love the cast members. Really love the cast members. Hashtag cast life. All this kind of stuff. Really love you." And then it's like, the $3 initial wage though. We're not gonna do that. And it's like, okay, I get it. It's a large amount from where they're at right now, which is they want to do $1 an hour, and eventually get to 20. I get it. But well, okay. So before, let's say 2020, right? The last 6 months of 2020, inflation rate was August 1.7, September 1.7, October 1.6, November 1.6, December 1.6, January 1.4, right? And then January of 2021 starts, and that's really where this kind of inflationary problems really kind of start to kick off. February 1.6, March 2.6, April 4.1, May 4.9, June 5.3, July 5.3%. It's creeping up, and I don't know, double digits. Who knows? That CPI is quite an interesting metric if you look into it. But we're going up in terms of inflation. It is not slowing down, which has a lot of the financial community concerned and so forth. And that's one of the reasons why Disney has to shed $5.5 billion and 7,000 employees, right? Because their debt load is high, interest rates are going up, it's more expensive to carry on that debt, they have to make cuts, right? But at the same token, this is Florida, where this is the number one state to move to ever since 2020, right? It number one in all the polling and all the research that I've been able to accrue right here, followed by Texas and some others. But this is the number one place to move, which means all the housing is, the demand has skyrocketed. The cost of inflation in Florida, Central Florida specifically, has gone up a tremendous amount. And Disney is still using the same tactics that they were back in 2017 with the LA area or Anaheim area cast members for Disneyland. You might want to change your approach. Now, look, OG, we have had conversations about this, and look, I'm hesitant to pay the cast members the absolute world for a few reasons, not the least of which being that we are talking about a significant amount of people here. I mean, this Service Trades Council Union represents more than 45,000 cast members. That's a lot of people, right? When you're talking 7,000 people being let's say removed from the company, right? In the coming weeks, it looks like, and that's 3% of the workforce for Disney, and that's making headlines like it is. 45,000 people, that's a lot.
A lot.
Okay? So for big increases, that's going to be very, very hard pill to swallow. And I understand that Disney wants to get its labor costs in line right here, but the reality in the central Orlando market, I think, is very, very different than I think. Then I think Disney, the game that they've been playing would imply. So that's kind of, it's a very complex situation.
It is, and there's consequences to raising the wages because these companies always find a way to cost save some other way, right? Like they cut your hours in. Oh yeah, now you're making $3 more, but now you're gonna have 1 day less a week working, right? So all this stuff sort of impacts each other. George, what do you think with this union contract negotiations?
I think honestly, it's a sticky situation one way or the other.
That was good branding right there, George. I like that.
Disney is, first and foremost, it's a business. It has to run like a business, and a lot of people, feel that because it's the Disney name, they could just sprinkle the pixie dust and make all the troubles and worrisomes go away. Where unfortunately, they are just another company that has to run like a well-oiled machine, and they have to be very careful of how they do it. They can't just do something on a whim, because they're still going through a lot of shit that they have to fix internally, as opposed to just kind of paying the cast members. Now, again, nothing against the cast members.
No,
they're doing their jobs. They're out there, making magic happen for all of us, aside that just make sure that you don't have more than 2 checks when you're paying at Cafe Orleans.
Right. Or if you do go to Cafe Orleans, make sure you ask for Oscar, who
ask for Oscar.
Yes,
he'll get you through. Don't
Yes.
no, completely unscathed.
But as far as for Florida goes, I mean, I remember back in 2020, and I followed the housing situation from 2020 on. And I was even tempted to buying a house down in Florida during the time of everything, because there was a particular place I was looking at, cost $16,000 to buy, and this same place now is $275,000.
Oh my goodness
Yes.
gracious. Yeah, I remember reading stories in 2020 about people moving to Florida. I mean, houses were going so fast, literally. I mean, real estate agents just said, okay, they make a decision now, because as soon as I hang up the phone, I got 20 different offers. This thing's going to be gone even out from under me. So it was an insane time. Slowed down a little bit, thankfully, but it's still, demand is still very much up there, and companies and corporations are looking to invest in the Orlando market as a result, which is great. But it's just the cost of living is going up. Michael Meets Mouse makes an interesting point here. I think the union has to leverage this time around with a labor shortage. I wouldn't be surprised if they got it up to 18, but I'm predicting 17. Either way, expect more emphasis on mobile ordering. Yes, I mean, and that's OG. You've said this many times, and I'll let you make the bulk of this point here. Right. That's what you can expect with automation, and it happens in many other industries now.
Amazon,
with the proliferation. With the proliferation of AI, it's a very interesting thing, which we'll get into in a moment. But OG, you had an expansive point on this.
No, yeah. I mean, these companies are going to make their money. They're not just going to take the hit and call it a day, you guys. Like they're gonna, you get up to $18 an hour, then they're going to automate more than, right? And we saw this. There was an Occupy Wall Street like offshoot movement called Fight for 15. It was focused mostly on like fast food workers. I mean, since that whole thing where they were kind of pushing these fast food companies to pay their workers more hourly, we've seen, like Michael Lee is saying here, a push for automation at these fast food places. McDonald's is going hard on this stuff. You walk into a McDonald's now, they got those big looking like iPhone things that you do your order right there, right? Well, that's 2 less employees they had to hire for that screen right there, right? You're seeing much more of this. Disney's going to go all in, like on this mobile ordering stuff. This is the direction, and that's what makes me upset, because yes, the cast members that are lucky enough to keep their jobs are going to make 18, but there might be a lot who don't get to keep their jobs anymore, and there is a sacrifice, sort of a cost to be had with these increases, which a lot of people don't talk about.
You have to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right?
You have to give and take. It's like, making a deal with the devil. It's like, which route do you end up taking? And actually, Amazon has a complete store that has no employees. You literally have the app and you have a card set on your account. When you walk in, it actually reads that you have the account. So you literally grab and you go. You don't even ring anything out. You literally grab it. And I believe it's in Seattle, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of its guys. It's a prototype type store right now. But you literally grab your items, you walk out, and it automatically charges your card.
I mean, and that's what we're looking at here. So now I have to ask you, maybe Theme Park Wizard in the chat, he's kind of our Universal guy. How much does Universal pay, and in Florida specifically? And maybe Disney should sort of match that. I don't know where they currently stand, but maybe that's the move, right? Because you don't want to lose good people to Universal, right? So if Disney's paying, $16 an hour and Universal's paying $17, well, give your cast members $17 fucking dollars and keep them, right? So I don't know if Wizard is still here, but I'd be curious to see what that difference is, because Disney's going to want to keep good people. And you
Yeah.
do that by paying them right. And you
Like
don't want to lose
Oscar.
them to the competition. Right. You
Like
don't want to lose.
Oscar.
Right. You don't want to lose cast members like Oscar. You do not. So
You could further increase services that you provide as well. It's actually one of the big contentions between Disneyland and Walt Disney World in terms of the cast members and the services that they provide. Pay is it's fairly close, all things considering, but the services are way different. They're way different. You got cast, I think, like tennis courts, childcare facilities, and so forth. You get this, you get that, and it largely because it is in competition with Universal, and who also provides a lot of their services. So it's kind of there's a competitive factor there. But as a compromise, you could increase those services as well. I'm just saying, like you said, George. I mean, the company's gonna keep its costs down. They're gonna keep their investments down. They're gonna, they're not gonna have it show up on an earnings report, and there are a myriad of reasons as to why that might be. Yeah, Universal, $15 an hour. Keep in mind that Disney will have to pay back pay when they finally get a deal made with the union that includes overtime and double time. Yeah, that's a very it's a very tricky thing as well. So it's going to be a big initial hit for the company, no matter how this goes.
yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. $15 an hour. I thought they were paying more than that. That's not that much. And Disney's paying less than that right now.
So I think Disney.
I thought they matched it right now. I thought they were
15.
I thought it was 15, and they were aiming for 18.
Yeah, okay, you're right. You're right, George. Let me.
So they're
see if I can
currently
go
the
back to
same
this.
as Universal, but they're
They're the
aiming
same.
for 18.
Yes. So
Okay.
they're eight. So the discrepancy is okay. Where does it start? Where do you go? Right. So right now it's 15. They want 18. Disney wants 16. At the end, you'll get to 20 no matter what.
Right. Correct.
But it's either $1 a year until you get there, or 18 and $20.
But and then they're
That's the
making
discrepancy.
the argument that by the time it hits 18, they're going to need 25. So it's like that's the argument there.
That's
It's
true.
gonna-
That's true. But I mean, the inflation's crazy.
Oh, yeah,
insane.
it is.
I mean,
But
price of
I
eggs
think
are double what they were in July.
Me personally, that's
Yeah.
where a lot of these companies kind of get put on the chopping block themselves as a company. And really, this should be something internally within our own government that should be overseen, not by individual companies, because as you mentioned, Dre, the inflation is just crazy. And
Yeah.
it's something has to occur. And I think we all pretty much know, we talked about it many times, that recession is coming. It has to.
Well,
I mean, it's
already.
I mean, we're already kind of here, but I mean, like, it has to hit that peak, for
It
it
does.
to, like, for something to actually legitimately happen where it has to change dramatically.
Problem is, and Michael Meets Mouse says it correctly. I mean, it's a tight labor market, and they're struggling to fill positions currently right now. If you don't do actually what they want, now it's like, okay, I mean, this is 45,000 cast members. It's a lot of people. Even if a small portion of those actually turn away, now you're having a reduction of services that are going to affect your the facilities in which you can provide for guests. So it's a really tricky thing. A lot of people are going to Uber. A lot of people are going to ride sharing opportunities and self-employment, gig economy, and so forth, right? And other avenues, self-entrepreneurialism, let's say. And it's left a lot of these jobs, open and vacant. And Disney's having a struggle now. This will not make it any easier, no matter what happens.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. At the end of the day, they're going to work a deal out. I mean, but what number they land on, we'll have to wait and see. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Now, George, our final topic was actually your. No, we have two topics. I'm sorry, we have two topics. Should we do Hulu right now? I think.
Yeah, let's move
We
to
can do Hulu real
let's,
fast.
Let's do Hulu.
Yeah. Let's do Hulu, and then we'll get into George's topic. Let's do Hulu.
Yes.
So Disney CEO Bob Iger on potential Hulu sale. Everything is on the table right now. Now this is interesting because I remember the Comcast guy, Jeff Shell. Oh, the only way this is going to end is with Disney writing us a big fat check. I don't know about that. Jeff. I don't know about that.
Jeff Shell may have been saying that, but Brian Roberts' superior was saying something very, very different. Hey,
Yes.
could end up that they get it, could end up that we get it, right? And he's been very, very open to that idea.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. And I think it was in the I think it was maybe not this one, but I think it was the Hollywood Reporter. Yeah, where Brian Roberts said like they're interested in Hulu. Like if it's up for sale, they definitely want to be part of that conversation. That's a fascinating thing. There it is. Interested in buying Disney's majority share. And that would be a smart move actually for Comcast because they don't really have a streamer like Peacock. No one watches Peacock, right?
Right.
You get Hulu, you have a legitimate, like you have some skin in the game, right?
You do. With something has a very attractive ARPU.
Yes. So it would be extremely attractive for Comcast, but also for Disney, because now Disney, all that content they have on Hulu, like Family Guy, all the Fox stuff, the FX stuff, which is fantastic, they can now charge Comcast for the licensing. So that's a money maker for them now, on top of selling their share to Comcast. So this would be a very, very, I think this would be a smart move, an attractive move. I don't know if I was Disney, this is the route I would probably go. Now you obviously keep Disney Plus, but you have all the adult stuff on Hulu licensed out to Comcast.
You do. And let's put this into perspective a little bit, right? Let's give people an analogy. OG, we always talk about the cow, right? You know, Iger was all about buying the cow and not necessarily buying the milk, right?
Right.
Because in that way you can distribute everything and you're fine. Well, you got a cow, you got to have the farm. Right? You got to have the farm, a lot of acreage, right? You got to feed them cows. You got to, you got to maintain that farm and so to speak, right? And you got to do all that kind of work. Well, what if the cow could live on somebody else's farm? You just pay a fee for it being there, but it still produces milk for you. That's kind of what we're talking right here. And so that way you don't have to have the expense of the damn farm, but you can still have your content live on some platform in which you get even tertiary benefits from, but certainly licensing benefits from. That's really where we're at, because frankly, it's a really tough competitive market right now. It's very expensive to actually hold on to these streaming services when they're making no money. How can we actually turn these things around and make a profitable venture sooner rather than later? This is one of the things that they are exploring, and I think he's pretty serious about it. Michael Meets Mouse, yes. Hulu has great RPU, yes, has great ARPU, the average revenue per user. It's the envy of the streaming world, honestly. Like people want it. This is a very hot property, and even now, I remember, we just did articles about this not too long ago, right? And the valuation back then, it was about an $8 billion deal, right, that Disney would have to incur. Now, according to this article, it's $9.2 billion, according to the recent filing by Disney to the SEC. So it's getting more expensive in which to make this deal actually happen. Why not sell
and Disney's
your
in
stake
the position right now to do so, and this is the best time I think for them to do. Where it kind of like it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for Comcast. It'll benefit Disney in the long run.
Well, it's a win for me if they get those Marvel rights back as part of this whole thing, but that's a whole other story, right? But OG, go ahead.
But I don't know if that's a win for our buddy Showcase in the chat, though, because that's been the firewall from keeping Marvel in the Florida parks.
Showcase, get ready to kiss Iron Man in the face when you see him at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I'm telling you, it's coming. No, I'm just joking, but I would make that part of the deal for sure. Don't just take the cash, get something out of it as well.
Do I hear that? I hear something entering Epcot right now.
Hulk smash!
Oh yeah, there he is. He's walking into Epcot right now as we speak.
I think Showcase would rather kiss the bricks.
Yeah, exactly. Better bricks, no Marvel.
There we go. Thank you, Universal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. It's an interesting idea. I think the chances of this happening pretty high. Disney's looking to get some money, and this is something that doesn't take away from the Disney brand. You're selling Hulu, which is really a lot of adult stuff like Handmaid's Tale and Family Guy, and a lot of edgy stuff. Hey, let Comcast own that. You license it out. You're good to go. Now, I do want to bring up. I told a buddy of mine that I would bring this up. I want to kind of like bounce this theory off you guys.
Sure.
Shout out to Alessio, friend of the channel.
Oh,
his
very much so.
theory, yeah, his theory is like that Iger wants to sell Hulu so he can put more adult content on Disney Plus. Now, I don't agree with that. I think that I don't personally feel like that's why he's doing that. But do you guys think that's an option? Like, okay, they're going to sell Hulu so then they can put the Disney-owned stuff on the Disney-owned adult stuff on their streamer, which is Disney Plus.
What Bob Chapek wanted to do is buy Hulu, and so now you have a place where adult content can live and live freely within a tile in Disney Plus, right? But that couldn't actually happen when 33% of it's owned by Comcast. Bob Iger, he thinks very differently than Chapek, and he's not about the adult intermixing with the Disney core brand and all that kind of stuff. He's just like, look, listen, these are separate things, these are separate entities, and they should be doing it separately. What's most likely to happen if Hulu is actually sold is that's where that adult content now lives with them, and they get a royalty from that. That's
exactly.
So what do you
and there's no risk for Disney image-wise,
right?
You know?
What do you fellas feel like the fate is for The Simpsons? Because The Simpsons are actually on Disney Plus.
It'll stay.
Do you think it would stay there?
Like, absolutely.
The numbers for The Simpsons are out of control. Like I am legitimately shocked.
Yes.
When I hear these numbers for Simpsons, that this show is still this relevant. I mean, it's like they're a star player on that platform.
And they were going to do a revival of King of the Hill. They were going to do, Futurama got, I think, extended another season, so forth like that. I think those you might kind of pick and choose what actually stays on Disney Plus, maybe Family Guy or something like that, right? Or maybe Hulu, that kind of thing goes back and forth. But Simpsons is way, it is a driver all in itself for Disney Plus core, so it's gonna stay. It's
gonna be there. Now we got one more topic, which was actually brought up by Mr. Family Man. I think you got the link, Dre, right, to the open letter. Maybe
letter.
not. You know what? Let me go ahead and send that to you real quick.
Sure, please.
George sent this to me. Oh, it was through a text message. Let me send it to you real quick.
Okay.
Via text. Actually, I'll send it to you in the DMs.
Please.
Give me just a moment. I do apologize, everybody. Send this to Dre real quick, and then I'll let you set the table. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So we got some comments here. Let me see here. If they sell Hulu, what content could Disney keep? They're going to keep it all the content they're going to keep. They're just going to have Comcast pay a licensing fee to run it on Hulu, which will be owned by Comcast. So all the content that was Disney owned, like all the Fox stuff, all the FX stuff, everything like that on Hulu now that's Disney owned will stay Disney owned, except now Comcast will have to cut a check to Disney to play it on then owned Comcast owned Hulu is basically the only thing that will change. All right, let's go ahead, George. You set the table, brother, on this. This is interesting.
Okay, so cast members send a pen open letter to Bob Iger, basically begging him to not have them return to the office for future workspace, for them to stay remote inside their home or what have you. And we actually have a mutual friend who was actually talking to me and Trey about this actually at Disneyland. And he is a cast member who actually works at home currently and would like to stay remote. And a lot of the bigger time cast members really have this thing that it's like they can get more work done depending on what their job title is at home rather than be in the office. But Iger is big on to the fact of, a lot of the creativity can be done by actually being in the same room altogether as to being remote back and forth. And I just thought this was a very interesting topic because you have the CEO, but then you have this group of cast members that are actually going back and forth, and you showcase it. They could be part of the 7,000, which actually I think that's going to tie into. That's literally, and I'm glad we saved this. We saved this for the last topic, but it actually goes back to our very beginning topic with the cut of the 7,000 cast members, and I think Iger's making moves, and it's like I think that goes beyond to just the studio, where he says, you know, you have to make your mark, and if you don't, then adios. You know, so it's like,
well, there is something to be said, especially, and Iger made this point at the town hall in November, and I think he was absolutely right about this. In a creative with a creative company like Disney, you need to have that in-person collaboration. It's important to kind of breed that creativity. I mean, John Lasseter was big on that. Your environment, the way the building is designed, the way the offices are designed, affect creativity, right?
Massively.
This is why Apple, when they create like their campus and all that, they have all this stuff in mind. It's not just for fun. They do it because it garners more creativity. So Iger's right. It's better to have in-person interactions when you're in a creative space like that than people working from home.
I personally feel like everyone just kind of got a little bit too comfortable with that.
Oh, big time. This was supposed to be temporary, and everyone now is like, oh, you know, I want to keep it this way, and that's fine. Maybe some employees can do that, but if you're in accounting or something, fine, work from home.
Well, and that's actually what our mutual friend was talking about when we were at Disneyland.
Right.
His particular position doesn't necessarily need him actually physically there, but he did mention the fact that the people who are the creatives, they really should be in that environmental space to be able to work off of each other and actually physically be.
And I think our mutual friend has a better argument than the one outlined here by these cast members for this letter here. They talk a lot about, well, you know, do we need to put more cars on the road, and availability and flexibility and capacity and so forth, and the risk of COVID-19 infections and so forth. It's like, these are not, I don't think, the best arguments. You got to think of the money, right? If you can make an argument that it leads to more productivity, and you can demonstrate that in whether it be workflow or other metrics that you can actually posit in a letter or to a senior employee or something like that, then I think that is a lot more. They'll be a lot more receptive to that than just say, "Oh, well, you don't want to put more cars on the road, do you?" That's not the best.
That's weak. That's weak.
That's weak. Yeah.
And the Rona, like, we're coming out of the pandy right now. I mean, I get it.
And I'm sorry. And no disrespect to anyone who actually said that. These are probably the same people that are in a nightclub and they're humping and bumping, grinding, popping, locking, dropping, bubblegum, wrap and roll, you know, and they're in there doing all that shit. And yet they're saying, okay, well, I can't go into the office because of COVID.
Well, I wouldn't have said that, but George, you said it. And I think in some way that is true. Not everybody, but there's got to be a couple. Look, listen. Okay.
How do you follow that up? How do you follow that up?
In the creative sphere, I think you got to work together. You just have to. When you're in the creative domain, I think working together in an environment is crucial. We saw. What do you got, George? What do you got? What did
exactly. Casual. What did George just say?
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, casual. I don't even know. Don't even ask me to try to repeat it. Like...
You're gonna have to rewind. But look, listen. In the creative space, right? That really does affect the product that you actually make, right? And John Lasseter, I mean, he was like bullish on when going from the previous Pixar sites to the one in Emeryville, what had to be maintained is that sense of creativity, just from the positioning of employees. You would have that collaborative process that would be maintained throughout that whole thing. And he was heavily critical, John Lasseter was, of the new facility that was constructed during Eisner's time for animation, and just like this building doesn't necessarily lend itself to the creative process like we did in Emeryville, and they changed things, or at least attempted to, in order to make that a more collaborative work environment and so forth. That absolutely does have an effect. Mundane services, though, like accounting, data entry, and so forth, doesn't necessarily need to be done on site. I think in some capacities, yes. In some capacities, you can make an argument that they don't. And look, if you're an employee who's like, "Hey, I am so much more productive at home than I am there," make that argument because I think they might be more receptive to that.
No, you're right, Dre. You're 100% right. It's about the money, and show them, hey, my numbers. If an employee has been there for a long time, show your manager, look, my numbers have improved this much since I've been working from home. You know, my productivity has skyrocketed. I'm not absent as much as I was before. That's the kind of stuff that management and like Bob Iger, things like that, that's what they're going to care about. Cars on the road? Are you kidding me? The Rona, come on. This is weak sauce, guys.
It is. It's
weak sauce.
And that I think with the Rona, I think that the excuse there only applies if you have some medical condition and so forth. That's the only thing, and you're gonna have to interact with the real world again in some capacity, and sometimes that's gonna be coming back to the office. You know, that's there are. And I've seen people make the people posit articles and studies and so forth on productivity, how productivity increased, following work from home, but then it very much decreased, and how that productivity has slipped and so forth. And that's why people are like bringing people back to the office, because it's like, okay, it's too lenient, it's too this, it's too that. There's security issues, right? So if you're doing accounting, well, do you necessarily want to have those numbers and so forth and access to those accounts from people at home, or do you want to have in a secure environment? Like,
right.
There are logistical issues here that I don't think people are kind of fully thinking about and considering, and especially in this letter, you gotta do better than that.
Well, and especially at the studio, these employees don't got a whole lot of leverage right now. I mean, Disney's looking for any way to lay people off right now.
Correct.
And if you rock that boat in any way, I would
unfortunately, that's it.
Right. Yeah, and look, and if you have a disability or something like that, where it's hard for you to be out and about, there's a case to be made for people like that. Then you go to your manager and say, hey, for me personally, I'm not really mobile. Is it okay if maybe I keep my position at home? It's easier for me considering the condition I'm in or whatever. That's a fair case.
Or maybe you joined with the idea that this would be available to you for work from home, and now it's like, now that situation has substantially changed. Make that argument, right?
Yeah, I feel like it shouldn't be for everybody or every type of job detail that's part of the company. I think it's like by case basis.
I think so, but overwhelmingly, Bob Iger is going to want you back in the office. Or just saying, look, the fact that a mandate like that was put out right before cuts were made, that's no coincidence.
No.
He's telling you, hey, you want to be part of the 7,000? Go right ahead. If not, this is what this standard's going to be. Take it for what it is, folks.
No, exactly. Now is not the time to start making demands, especially if you're working studio.
If you're working studio,
I'm telling you, just keep your head down and do it. I'm just saying.
Now, if you're an hourly frontline cast member, maybe that's a different story in Florida and so forth. But if you're working studio, you gonna be in there.
That's no, 100%. Now we covered all the on the books topics. I'll start with you, Dre, and I'll go to George. But any miscellaneous you want to kind of cover before we close it out today?
I'm thinking about it now. I think I had some No, I made the points for your to the last video, so all good there. There is a what is it? A story about AI involved, but do you want to say that for another time?
Yeah, that's meaty. I can go a half hour on that. We'll do that another video because
because that's a big one, and a lot of people they're very divided on it. Maybe it's for another live show because maybe we get your impressions on this. Very, very interesting. I know Wizard up top was saying, "Oh, adult content on Disney Plus." Look, listen, Iger's not about that, but it is a digital babysitter, and that's what everybody considers, including Disney themselves in some case.
But that doesn't even really matter though either, because Disney doesn't care what you're doing when you clicked on that video. Exactly. All they see are the numbers anyway. So you could be doing the laundry while watching Moana, but your clicks still matter. That's all they give a shit about.
The running time is what matters. Engagement, lack of churn, all those kind of things, right? And what kind of content we can actually produce to actually get more subscribers. All that stuff actually does matter. And I think, like, as far as stuff that appeals to adults, think of things like Mandalorian. Don't think of things like, I don't know, American Horror Story or something. Like, that's kind of the difference there.
Right. And I'm telling you, that gambling stuff, that ESPN sports gambling stuff, that train left the station, went with Bobby Chapes. That was going to happen.
It's a revenue stream. Why?
It's gone now. I don't think Iger's going to do that. And we didn't hear anything about that in the quarterly earnings. It's done.
And we've heard nothing since. Nothing since. And so that just tells you where you're going to go there.
Yeah, no, 100%. George, any miscellaneous before we go?
Yes. Just a couple things. Actually, during the time of us recording the live, Dave Hollis, who was a former Disney executive, he was the company's president for the worldwide distribution, recently passed away at age 47. Saturday night in his home of Austin, Texas. So I just wanted to bring that up, that our condolences to his family, during this hard time. So I just had to showcase that.
No, absolutely. That's way too young. 47.
Yeah, it's crazy. But so I just had to bring that up just out of the respect because of, we're talking about the Walt Disney Company. He had a major impact in the company before resigning in 2018. So our thoughts and prayers go out to his family during this difficult time.
Absolutely.
And lastly, anyone who has stuck with us for over 2 hours, I applaud you. For anyone, I want to just give a friendly reminder that if you would still like to have a personalized OG55 Disney card for the Disney 100 to be sent out to you, please DM any one of us on Twitter, or if you'd like, you could email Mr. OG himself at his email. That
I'm putting it up right now.
Yeah, he's going to put it up on this screen. Please feel free. There's Mickey, Minnie, Tinkerbell, Stitch, Alice. So if there's any particular card that you would like, just put it in with your home address and we'll send it out to you, because you guys are what makes this channel go. We do this all for you. We appreciate everything that you do, sticking with us, shooting the shit is what I like to call it, talking Disney and everything. Yeah. So we appreciate every single one of you for your contributions to just liking our channel, what we do. And as I said, you drive the force that you make us want to do more and more content.
100%. Like, we're incredibly humbled by all the support that we get, and we love this like community that we built. We made really, really great friends here. And we can't thank you, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We can't thank you enough for everything. All the support. It's been amazing. Absolutely amazing. And speaking of which, California Dreamin' supports the channel, $1.99. Thank you so much, California Dreamin'. Hi guys, missed you. We missed you too, California Dreamin'. We missed you too.
Yes.
It's good to see you, brother. Absolutely.
Absolutely, 100%.
And then Michael Lee, more George in future live shows, please. Don't worry, Michael, I'm not going anywhere. So you're definitely going to see a whole lot more of this Disney family, man. I don't necessarily know if that's the correct title I should be having, but that's
Yep. And our good friend and national treasure, Showcase of Wishes, says that he hopes that the card you're sending him does not have crack Mickey on it. The new style Mickey. Yes. So is it traditional Mickey or is it crack Mickey?
I believe it's traditional Mickey.
There you go.
It's the traditional Mickey where it's right after the black and white Steamboat Willie, but before the 70s and 80s and 90s Mickey.
So like a Fantasia Mickey?
Even before that, a little bit. Before he had like the dilated eyes.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, so we're still talking Walt Arrow, so we're good. We're good, Showcase.
Yes.
Not crack Mickey.
Yes.
Not crack Mickey. But yes, amazing support, and we love you all. This has been just awesome. And we met people that, at the parks that support the channel, and they were coming up to us. It was really awesome, and it's humbling. Cool. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Mm-hmm. And I think
extremely humbling. The community that we've made and the friends that we've all kind of brought together, and seeing you guys in the parks, that was a whole lot of fun and extremely humbling for sure. I mean, it's it's like, wow,
And we still talk about it. That trip, it was a short trip. Okay. It was a weekender, but I tell you what, it had a lot of meaning behind it. It did. And like we left that weekend where it was just, we were completely I don't even have words for it. I can't even speak right now. Flabbergasted. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. To the fact that, we were always on the other side of the spectrum, where we were going up to YouTubers and content creators saying, we're a huge fan of you. We love your material. We love your show. But to actually have people come up to us and say the same thing where we're on the opposite side, it was very humbling. It was great.
Now Lovelow is asking, is it black and white Mickey or the one in color?
I believe it's in the transition, like out of black and white, where the face
Silly Symphonies Mickey, maybe.
Oh yes. Silly Symphonies Mickey. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like just going into the Technicolor, but like not fully out of it yet. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
Now, Showcase, if you're still in the chat, do not worry. We will be doing the Carl's Jr. drop momentarily. But to our 2-hour and 19-minute crew, thank you for sticking with us today. Stacked show, a lot of fun. We're gonna close it out today. We got. Hold on. You know what? I haven't done this in a while. Hold on one sec, Vash. We haven't done this in a while.
Okay.
Hold on. Here we go.
And now, the man with many titles, bringing you juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove, Mr. Vash Sky.
AKA the Fire Marshal, Dr. Dre. Take it away, brother.
There you go. The doctor. Oh, it's so funny, Ethan. Whenever he calls me, hey, the doctors. That's just my name now. This is great stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Casual, thank you for sharing the links and doing everything behind the scenes. You do so much work for us. Thank you so much. Captain John D, California Dreamin', Michael Meets Mouse, Showcase of Wishes, Theme Park Wizard, everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for making this channel what it is. We do this all for you, so thank you. If you want to go ahead and follow me, you can go do so right down there at Vash Sky. Just go ahead and type that up, and it should pop up on Twitter for, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say, for all the robust discussion right there. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel watching right now. So please hit that subscribe button down below, comment down below, add a few comments in the live chat if you're still in there. Hit the like button, share this video out. That does really help the channel in a number of ways. And I'm on there as well under my show, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
But really nothing compares with a freshly squeezed.
Haven't done that in a while either.
Fantastic. And down below, we got George, the Disney Family Man 23, host of the Walt Disney World Show here on the channel. And yes, Mr. Balls to the Wall. And also Carl's Jr. Aficionado. Yeah, exactly. George, if you let everybody home know where they could find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got to get my superstar value mill there, so I have to. But yes, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You can find me on the new podcast called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you can find me here on my home base with Orange Grove 55, with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. There we go. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below with everything that we discussed today, from Zootopia coming to Animal Kingdom, Pandora coming to Disneyland. We talked about everything. We talked about the Proud family. We talked about union jobs. We covered just about everything. Comment with any of that you want to talk about in the comments. We read all the comments. We appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching, and
apologize for not being the ally that you needed me to be.
there you go. A little Chapek love, you know, a little
There you
Chapek.
go.
I know, right?
First time I've heard him in so long.
I know. I kind of miss the guy a little bit.
I
right?
miss him too. Like, how ironclad is this NDA? It's just like, you will never get an interview ever. You know, it's just, he's gone. I don't know where he is. He's like disappeared.
He got a new social, new name. He's living somewhere like on some island.
Yes. He went full Jimmy Hoffa on us. Just don't even know where he went.
You know,
Gone.
it's crazy. Like the Italian mob got him. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we wish Chapek well. You know, look, maybe he wasn't a right fit for Disney, but he is a very smart business mind, and I think that anywhere else, you know, maybe Carl's Jr. or something, right? I don't know. I think he'll do well in an environment like that. Disney just wasn't a good fit, but I'm sure he'll bounce back and come back strong. But thank you all so much for watching. We're going to do that Carl Jr. drop. See you next time, everybody. Bye-bye now.